Hey guys, tonight we're traveling all the way back to ancient Egypt, not as a powerful pharaoh or a daring adventurer, but as someone who is about to experience the most luxurious, and let's be honest, slightly terrifying side of palace life. You're about to become a concubine in the new kingdom, a position of strange privilege and immense vulnerability. As the sun sets over the Nile, you can practically feel the heat of the day fading, replaced by a soft, warm breeze that carries the scent of incense and blooming papyrus. You're standing on the bank, a world away from your humble village, looking at the towering walls of a grand city, the city of Thebes, and behind those walls, your new life awaits. You probably won't survive this for very long. History is not kind to the powerless, but for a while, you'll be a part of the most powerful court in the ancient world. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as you settle in, maybe drop your location and what time it is for you in the comments. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You feel the coarse dust of the road between your toes as you're led toward the city gates. The sounds of daily life are a cacophony you've never heard before. The braying of donkeys, the rhythmic chants of men pulling massive stone blocks, the distant, echoing clang of bronze on bronze from a smithy. A man with a severe, clean-shaven face and a crisp linen kilt guides you. He doesn't say much, just a few clipped commands. You're not quite sure why you've been chosen, only that your family's desperate need for a dowry or a favor has led you here, to this great city, a pawn in a game you don't yet understand. You are a gift, an offering, a small piece of a political puzzle as you pass through the monumental gates. The scale of Thebes is overwhelming. Colossal statues of gods and pharaohs line the avenues, their painted eyes seeming to follow you. The air thickens with the smell of cooking oil, sweat, and something sweet and floral, perhaps jasmine. Historians still argue whether the common people truly revered the pharaohs as living gods, or if it was more a pragmatic acceptance of their power. You, however, feel a very real and physical sense of awe and dread as you are led through the outer courts. Finally, you arrive at the royal palace itself. The walls are gleaming white, and painted murals depict scenes of the pharaoh's glorious victories and peaceful offerings to the gods. You are ushered into a chamber where you are stripped of your simple clothes and bathed in warm, perfumed water. Servants, mostly older women with kind but weary eyes, gently scrub away the dust of your former life. They oil your skin with fragrant lotions and comb out your hair. This is your first taste of the bizarre luxury that will define your new existence. A mainstream historical fact is that Egyptian palaces were not just places of residence. They were sprawling complexes that housed administrative offices, workshops, and granaries, making them centers of both political and economic power. It was like a miniature city, all built to serve one person. You are given a simple, pleated linen dress, so fine it feels like a soft breeze against your skin. A single gold armband is placed on your upper arm. It's a strange, almost impersonal gesture of ownership. This is no grand welcoming party. It's a quiet, efficient, and strangely lonely induction. The whole thing feels more like a preparation for a ritual than a new beginning. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptians believed that keeping their bodies clean and perfumed was a way of honoring the gods, as divine beings were thought to smell of myrrh and frankincense. It was a spiritual act as much as a hygienic one. You can practically smell the piety in the air, mixed with a healthy dose of anxiety. You are then led to a large, open courtyard filled with women. They are of all ages, some young and nervous like you, others older with a settled, knowing look in their eyes. You're in the harem, the Shina, or House of the Royal Children. It is a bit of a misnomer, as it's not just for the pharaoh's concubines and wives. It's a bustling community of women, their children, servants, and administrators. This is your new home. There is a rigid hierarchy here, and your position is at the very bottom, a new addition to the great human tapestry of the pharaoh's domestic life. You find a small space on a simple mat, among other new arrivals. The moonlight casts long shadows, and you can hear the distant, soothing lapping of the Nile, a sound that promises both life and danger. The morning sun rises, not gently, but with a fierce, blinding intensity. You wake up on the mat, your body stiff and your mind still reeling from the events of the previous day. The palace awakens with you, the sound of bare feet on stone floors, the murmur of 100 voices, and the clinking of pottery fill the air. You're not in your simple, familiar home anymore. You're a piece of a massive, living machine. Your new reality, you quickly learn, is defined by a strict hierarchy, and your position is at the very bottom. You're a concubine, yes, but not a royal wife or even a favoured one, not yet. You're just another woman in the Pershina, a name that literally means House of the Royal Children, which is a perfect name, really, as you're here to produce more heirs, or at the very least, just be available. The harem is a world unto itself, a microcosm of Egyptian society with its own rigid class structure. At the top sits the great royal wife, the queen. She is the pharaoh's principal consort, often of royal blood herself, and holds immense power and prestige. Below her are the secondary wives, also of high standing, who might be foreign princesses or daughters of powerful nobles. Then come the concubines like you, a diverse group from all over Egypt and beyond. And at the very bottom are the servants and slaves who attend to everyone else. Your place is near the back, in the shadow of the more established women. You're not just a person here, you're a part of the pharaoh's property, a commodity, and your value is entirely tied to your potential to bear a royal son. Historians still argue whether the term harem accurately describes the Pershina, as it was more of a large, administrative court of women and children, rather than just a place of sexual servitude. Still, that's what we call it in our modern, simplified, very boring histories. Your first days are a blur of observation. You watch the other concubines with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Some are young and flighty, giggling and gossiping like they're at a village festival. Others, older and more experienced, carry themselves with a weary grace, their eyes holding a deep, quiet knowledge of this place. They teach you the unwritten rules: never speak unless spoken to, never walk ahead of an older concubine, and most importantly, never, ever draw the queen's attention unless it is absolutely necessary and perfectly positive. One slip-up, one misstep, could mean a swift demotion or a life of thankless servitude. The air is thick with unspoken rivalries and quiet alliances, a silent dance of power and desperation. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the harem even had its own administrative staff, including male scribes and stewards, and a female director, often a powerful matriarch from the pharaoh's family. So it wasn't just a bunch of women and a pharaoh, it was a mini bureaucracy. They had memos and everything. Imagine the drama in the inter-office email chains. You learn that your life is not your own. Your days are scheduled and supervised. You are not free to wander the palace at will. Your time is divided between specific duties: weaving fine linen, learning songs and dances for entertainment, and participating in rituals to honor the gods. A mainstream historical fact is that the Egyptian palace was a hub of artistic and economic activity. Concubines and royal women were often skilled artisans, producing high-quality textiles and other goods that were used and traded by the royal family. You are a part of this production line now. You remember the simple cloth you wove back home. This is different. The threads are finer, the colours more vibrant, and the designs are intricate, depicting scenes from mythology and nature. The work is tedious but soothing, a rhythmic, repetitive motion that allows your mind to drift. During your first week, you notice an older woman, a servant, who has a small, faded tattoo of a bird on her wrist. You ask one of the younger concubines about it, and she shushes you nervously. She's a Shenanek, a lady of the inner court. They say she was once a favoured concubine, but she displeased the pharaoh, and now she is nothing. This is your first real lesson in the impermanence of your position. One moment you are elevated, the next you are cast down, and the fall is far more significant than you could ever have imagined. It's a sobering thought, a grim reality check that hangs in the back of your mind as you go about your duties. You see the glint in some of the concubines' eyes, a desperate hope and a fierce ambition that you can't yet comprehend. They are not just here to live, they are here to win, whatever that means in this strange and unsettling place. As the day ends, You lie on your mat, feeling the smooth stone floor beneath you, and for the first time, you wonder if you will ever feel at home here. The scent of incense from a nearby shrine is supposed to be calming, but to you, it just smells like a gilded cage. The sun, now a blazing orb high in the sky, dictates the rhythm of your new life. You've been in the harem for a few weeks now, and the routine, once terrifyingly foreign, has started to feel strangely normal, or at least the normalcy of being someone else's property has settled in. The heart of your daily existence is not work or even worship, but the elaborate, almost ritualistic process of becoming beautiful. This isn't vanity, not in the way you once understood it. It's a duty, a requirement, a form of self-preservation. Your morning begins with a full-body wash with a paste made from natron and oil, a kind of ancient soap that leaves your skin feeling smooth but slightly tingling. You then move on to a meticulous process of depilation. Women in the harem use a mixture of sugar, honey, and wax to remove all body hair. It's a bit like a modern-day waxing, only without the comforting thought of a licensed professional and an air-conditioned room. The goal is to be completely hairless, a sign of purity, youth, and cleanliness. A mainstream historical fact is that this obsession with being hairless was a widespread practice in ancient Egypt, not just for the elite, and even included shaving the head and wearing wigs. It was a sign of status and was also believed to ward off lice and other parasites. Once your skin is smooth, it's time for the lotions. Servants bring jars of fragrant oils, often scented with myrrh, frankincense, or lotus blossoms. You apply them liberally, massaging the oil into your skin until it gleams. This isn't just for scent. The dry, desert air is merciless, and these oils act as a powerful moisturizer and sun protection. They also believed it was a way to make the skin more receptive to spiritual energy, which sounds great, but mostly, it just makes you smell really, really nice. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that crocodile dung was sometimes used as a key ingredient in an ancient Egyptian sunscreen recipe. Just imagine that for a moment. You're getting slathered in that stuff, hoping it works, and trying not to think about, well, you know, remember that crocodile dung sunscreen? Probably not something you want to remember. But here we are. Luckily, you seem to have a much better smelling job here. The most important part of your beauty regimen is the eye makeup. You sit on a low stool as a servant carefully applies kohl to your eyes. The dark, charcoal-like powder is used to draw thick, dramatic lines around your eyes, extending outward towards your temples. This isn't just for aesthetics. It was believed to have a protective quality, warding off evil spirits and the glare of the sun. The kohl was often made from galena, a lead ore, and had mild antiseptic properties, which helped to prevent eye infections in the dusty, unsanitary conditions. It's a very practical kind of glamour. Your hair is a whole other project. Even though you are shaved, you have a wig to wear. It's heavy and hot, but a necessary part of your daily costume. It's made from a mixture of human hair and sheep's wool, woven and braided into an intricate style. Servants regularly clean and restyle the wigs, treating them with scented oils and keeping them in special boxes to maintain their shape. You're not just preparing yourself for a man, you're preparing yourself for a deity, a god-king whose very presence is an act of divine attention. The routine is mind-numbingly repetitive, a constant cycle of cleansing, oiling, and decorating. It's a way of erasing your old self and replacing it with a new, more refined, and more uniform version. The concubines all look similar, not identical, but their grooming, makeup, and dress give them a kind of collective identity. Historians still argue whether this uniformity was a deliberate act of dehumanization or a way of showcasing the pharaoh's wealth and power by presenting a flawless, synchronized court. You lean towards the latter. It's a way of being a human decoration, a living statue. It's an unnerving thought, but as you watch the women around you, flawlessly putting on their kohl and adjusting their wigs, you understand that this is simply the price of admission. This is how you survive, and as you stand there, glistening with oil, your eyes rimmed in black kohl, you catch a glimpse of your reflection in a polished bronze mirror. The girl who arrived here is gone, replaced by someone new, someone who belongs to this place. You've shed your old skin, not through choice, but through necessity, and as the sun beats down, you step out of the inner chamber, ready for whatever the day holds, a living work of art in a gilded cage. Now that you've got the basics down, the whole looking like a goddess thing, it's time to learn the unspoken language of the harem. This isn't a sorority, it's more like a high-stakes, silent game of chess. Your interactions with the other concubines, the royal wives, and the staff are all governed by a complex web of social etiquette and subtle power plays. You quickly learn that what you say is less important than how you say it, or even if you say it at all. The atmosphere in the Pershina is a strange mix of sisterhood and simmering competition. On one hand, you're all in the same boat, bound by your shared fate. You help each other with hair braiding, share gossip about the latest palace goings-on, and whisper about the pharaoh's moods. There's a certain camaraderie born of this shared experience. You have to rely on each other to get by. But beneath the surface, there's a constant, low-level tension. Each of you is a potential mother to a royal child, a potential favorite, a potential queen. This creates an undercurrent of rivalry, a quiet jockeying for position that can turn a friend into a foe in an instant. It's like a reality TV show, but with much higher stakes and way better makeup. You notice the alliances forming. The older, more established concubines often group together, sharing wisdom and protecting their small circles. The newcomers, like you, are left to fend for yourselves or find a mentor among the more generous women. You learn to read the room, to interpret a lowered gaze, a slight shift in posture, or the way someone holds their hand. These are the tells, the quiet signals that let you know who is in favor and who is not. For example, a woman who is seen eating a special type of honey cake from the pharaoh's table is likely in his good graces, at least for the moment. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptian sense of humor was often based on puns and clever wordplay, which could also be used to subtly mock or praise someone without being too obvious. You have to learn to catch these double meanings quickly to avoid embarrassment. A mainstream historical fact is that the social structure of the harem was heavily influenced by the family unit, with the great royal wife acting as a kind of matriarch. She held a special administrative role and managed the daily affairs of the household, a true position of power. While she may not have been your friend, she was the person who held your fate in her hands, and gaining her favor, or at least avoiding her wrath, was a major goal for everyone. The relationships aren't just between the concubines. The servants, scribes, and guards all have their own roles and power within this complex ecosystem. You learn to be polite to everyone, from the lowliest water carrier to the chief of the scribes. A kind word or a small favor can go a long way. You realize that a seemingly insignificant servant might have a relative in a position of power, or that a scribe might hear things that you would never be privy to. It's a network of information, and the most successful concubines are those who understand how to navigate it without arousing suspicion. Historians still argue whether the Pershina was a place of true confinement, or if the women had some freedom of movement. Your experience suggests it's a bit of both. You are confined to the palace complex, but within those walls, you can move around freely. You can visit the gardens, the workshops, or the inner courtyards. Your world has shrunk, but it has also become more intricate. You are no longer just a person. You are a cog in a great machine, and your role is to turn smoothly and without complaint. The most important relationship is the one you have with yourself. In this new world of enforced identity and external validation, it's easy to lose sight of who you are. The girl you used to be, the one who lived by the simple rhythms of the village, is a distant memory. The woman you are becoming is a product of this place, a creature of luxury and anxiety. And as you sit there, listening to the quiet gossip of the other women, you realize that survival here isn't about physical strength or cleverness. It's about a kind of mental resilience, the ability to adapt and to find a place for yourself in a world that wasn't made for you. While you've been learning the ins and outs of your own position, you've also been observing the women who hold real power in the palace. At the pinnacle of this feminine hierarchy is the great royal wife, the queen. She is not just a pharaoh's consort, she is a political figure in her own right, a living embodiment of the divine and a key player in the stability of the kingdom. Her name, her lineage, her titles are a powerful signal to all. You catch glimpses of her, often from a distance. As she moves through the courtyards with a regal and detached air, she is always impeccably dressed. her jewelry and headdress, often the vulture or cobra diadem, symbols of her divine connection and authority. A mainstream historical fact is that the great royal wife's role was far from purely ceremonial. She often had a hand in running the kingdom, from managing temple treasuries to overseeing her own vast estates. Some queens, like Nefertari during the reign of Ramesses II, were so influential that they were depicted on monuments almost as frequently as the pharaoh himself. An almost unimaginable honor. Her power is not just derived from her relationship to the pharaoh, but from her connection to the goddess Mut, the mother of the gods, and she is seen as the female counterpart to the pharaoh's divine kingship. Beyond the great royal wife are the other royal wives. These women come from different backgrounds and hold varying degrees of influence. Some are daughters of powerful Egyptian nobles, securing alliances and loyalty within the kingdom. Others are foreign princesses, sent from faraway lands like Mitanni or Babylon as part of diplomatic treaties. Their arrival is a major event, a grand procession that brings with it exotic goods, new customs, and a fresh wave of political intrigue. You notice that these foreign wives often seem lost at first, struggling with the language and the strict protocols of the Egyptian court, a stark reminder that even those with power can be just as displaced as you are. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some foreign princesses who arrived at the Egyptian court were given new names to make them sound more Egyptian. For example, a Mitanni princess named Tadukipa was renamed Nefertari during her marriage negotiations. Historians still argue whether the foreign wives were treated as equals to their Egyptian counterparts. You see firsthand that while they are afforded respect due to their royal birth, they often operate on the periphery of the inner circle, never quite fully integrated into the fabric of Egyptian court life. Their main purpose is to cement a political alliance, not to become a central figure in the court's social life. You see them talking amongst themselves, a small island of foreignness in a vast sea of Egyptian culture. They are as much a part of the pharaoh's power as his army or his treasury, a living treaty, a reminder of the global reach of the kingdom. It's strange to think that women who are technically royalty in their own land are essentially just a different kind of valuable object here. Your proximity to these women of power is both a source of potential opportunity and constant danger. Getting noticed by the queen could lead to a position as one of her ladies-in-waiting, a role that comes with its own perks and privileges, but an accidental slight, a look that is too long or a tone that is too familiar, could get you banished to a remote estate or worse. You learn to make yourself small, to be present but not conspicuous, to move through these spaces like a ghost. The air hums with the unspoken tension of who might catch the eye of the pharaoh next, or who might fall from favour and what that would mean for their family back home. As the sun sets, casting long, dramatic shadows across the courtyard, you see a procession of servants carrying a litter. It is the queen, returning from a temple visit. She does not acknowledge you or any of the other concubines, but her presence is a gravitational force. You feel it in the way the air shifts, in the way the other women straighten their backs and lower their gazes. You are a part of her world now, a small, insignificant star in her vast and brilliant constellation, but your life, and indeed the entire kingdom, revolves around her and the pharaoh. Two suns in a very hot and dusty sky. Your position in the harem gives you a unique, if low-level, perspective on the most powerful unions in the kingdom. You witness firsthand how royal marriages are not about love, that's a luxury for the common folk, but about power, alliances, and the stability of the kingdom. You see the constant political maneuvering, the way a daughter from a powerful family is offered to the pharaoh to secure their loyalty, or how a princess from a foreign land is brought in to solidify a truce or a trade agreement. These women are not just brides, they are living contracts. A mainstream historical fact is that Egyptian pharaohs, especially during the New Kingdom, often engaged in what is known as diplomatic marriage, where they would marry the daughters of foreign kings from places like Mitanni, Babylon, and even the Hittite Empire. These marriages were a cornerstone of international relations, ensuring peace and mutual benefit between empires. You see the physical results of these marriages in the women you live with, women with different accents, different customs, and different styles of dress, all brought here for the sake of the empire. It's a bit like a political version of a blind date, but the stakes are, a little higher. like the continued existence of your kingdom. Higher, the children of these unions are the future of Egypt, and their care is a priority. The boys are raised to become future pharaohs or high-ranking officials, while the girls are groomed for political marriages themselves, continuing the cycle. The harem is less of a private residence and more of a breeding ground for the next generation of rulers. You watch the royal children playing in the courtyards, their tutors and guards always nearby. They are the entire point of this whole operation, and you're just one of many potential ingredients in the recipe for a new heir. Historians still argue whether the pharaoh's first wife, the great royal wife, always held a bloodline connection that was considered more legitimate than other wives. Some scholars believe that the practice of pharaohs marrying their sisters or half-sisters was not just a way to keep the bloodline pure, but also to secure the female line of inheritance, which was considered equally important to the male line. You don't have enough information to know if the pharaoh's current wife is his sister, but you see the special respect paid to her, a reverence that goes beyond mere spousal love. You also get a glimpse of the social mobility that can come with being a concubine. Though it's rare, a woman who bears a son to the pharaoh, especially one who goes on to become a king, can rise in status dramatically. Her family is elevated. She is given her own household, and she gains a measure of influence she never would have had otherwise. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the concubines were often talented musicians, singers, and dancers, and their artistic skills were a key part of their value and could be a way to gain favor with the pharaoh. You spend hours practicing songs and dances, knowing that a single, perfect performance might be your one chance to get noticed. You're not just a body, you are a performer, a living piece of entertainment. It's a strange mix of being an artist and a captive. The political dynamics don't stop at the main court. Within the harem, smaller power structures exist, with certain concubines gaining influence over others. They act as informal intermediaries, passing on messages and mediating disputes. These women, often older and more experienced, are the real power brokers of the harem, and they are the ones you must befriend or, at the very least, not offend. They are the ones who can tell you if the pharaoh is in a good mood today or if he's best left alone. They are the ones who can teach you the subtle art of not being noticed when you don't want to be. Your life is a constant navigation of these treacherous waters, a delicate balancing act of trying to be seen and trying to be invisible, all at the same time. You are no longer the girl from the village. The simple linen you once wore is gone, replaced by the finery of the palace. You are a walking testament to the pharaoh's wealth, and your daily attire is a carefully curated statement of his power. The heat of the Egyptian sun is relentless, so your clothes are made of the finest, most lightweight linen, pleated with a precision that speaks of countless hours of labor. The pleats aren't just for show, they trap air, making the garment lighter and more comfortable. A mainstream historical fact is that ancient Egyptians used a unique method of pleating by dampening the cloth and pressing it with heavy, grooved wooden boards, a process that created permanent, intricate folds. Your linen gown is often dyed with vibrant colors, a luxury afforded only to the elite. Deep indigo from the murex snail, a bright yellow from saffron, or a brilliant red from madder root. These colors weren't just pretty, they were symbols of status, as some dyes were incredibly expensive and difficult to produce. You also wear a calasiris, a long, sheath-like dress that hugs your body, often with a sash tied at the waist. It's elegant and practical, a perfect blend of style and function for the hot climate. But clothing is only half the story. Your body is also a canvas for the pharaoh's riches. You are draped in jewelry, not just for adornment, but for its magical and protective properties. You wear a broad collar necklace made of dozens of rows of glass beads and semi-precious stones like lapis lazuli, carnelian, and turquoise. These stones were not just chosen for their color, each had a specific symbolic meaning. Lapis lazuli, for example, was believed to have a divine connection and was often associated with the gods. It's not just a necklace, it's a small, portable shrine. On your wrists and ankles are bracelets of gold and silver. Your fingers are adorned with rings featuring scarabs or the Eye of Horus. These are not just decorative, they are amulets meant to ward off evil and bring good fortune. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptians believed that jewelry, particularly that made of gold, possessed magical properties due to its association with the sun god Ra. Gold was considered the flesh of the gods, and by wearing it, you were believed to be closer to the divine. The final piece of your daily transformation is the cosmetics. We've already talked about the kohl around your eyes, but that's just the beginning. Your lips are coloured with red ochre, and your cheeks with a rosy powder. You smell of myrrh and jasmine, and you apply scented cones made of animal fat and perfume to your head, which slowly melt throughout the day, releasing a continuous, pleasing aroma. It's a sensory experience, a way of announcing your presence with a scent that says, "I am a part of the pharaoh's court." Historians still argue whether the level of luxury in the harem was a genuine comfort or a form of gilded captivity. You feel it's a bit of both. The clothes are beautiful, the jewelry is heavy with its divine purpose, and the scents are intoxicating. But every piece you wear, every layer of cosmetic you apply, is a constant reminder that you are not your own. You are a beautiful object, a jewel in a vast collection, and your value is in your ability to reflect the power of the man who owns you. You're a living trophy, a walking museum piece. It's a strange, unsettling feeling to know that your own body is not yours to do with as you please, but a tool for someone else's political and spiritual purpose. As you stand in front of a polished bronze mirror, you see the reflection of a person you barely recognize. The girl from the village is gone, buried under layers of linen, gold, and coal. What's left is a carefully constructed image, a masterpiece of ancient fashion and beauty, a symbol of the great kingdom of Egypt. Life in the harem isn't just about looking good, it's also about a very specific kind of physical sustenance. You are no longer subsisting on the simple diet of a village girl. Your meals are rich, varied, and, in a strange way, a reflection of the wealth and bounty of the kingdom. The palace kitchen is a sprawling, bustling place, a sensory explosion of sizzling meats, bubbling stews, and the sweet aroma of baking bread. A mainstream historical fact is that the Egyptian diet, especially for the elite, was surprisingly diverse. While the staple for most people was bread and beer, the royal court enjoyed a much wider variety of foods. You are served platters of roasted meats, duck, goose, and cattle, all from the royal estates. You eat stews made with lentils, chickpeas, and a variety of vegetables like onions, garlic, and lettuce. The bread is a special kind, made from finely sifted flour and baked in a tall, conical mould, resulting in a lighter, softer loaf than the coarse bread of the common people. You also get to eat things you've only ever dreamed of. Sweet cakes made with honey and dates, and pastries filled with nuts and fruit. The palace chefs are masters of their craft, and they use a variety of herbs and spices to flavour the food. Cinnamon, coriander, cumin, and mint are all used liberally, creating complex and delicious flavours. You also drink a special filtered beer, a thick, nutritious liquid that is a staple for everyone from the lowliest worker to the highest pharaoh. It's not like the beer we know today, it's more like a fermented, liquid bread, and it provides a lot of calories and vitamins, making it a crucial part of the diet. The meals are not just about food, they are social events. You eat with the other concubines in a large, communal dining hall. The women sit on low stools or on woven mats, and the food is brought out on low tables. The atmosphere is relaxed, and this is where you hear the latest gossip and news from the outside world. Filtered through the servants and guards, it's a moment of release, a brief respite from the pressures of the day. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptians were not big on cutlery. You eat most of your meals with your hands, and the washing of hands before and after meals is a formal ritual. It's a very intimate way to eat, and it also requires you to be very careful with your manners. Historians still argue whether the Egyptian diet was always healthy. While the variety of foods suggests a balanced diet, the lack of refrigeration meant that food could spoil quickly, leading to food-borne illnesses. You also notice that the portions are generous, and the concubines are often encouraged to eat to plumpness, as a larger body was a sign of health and fertility in ancient Egypt. It's a very different beauty standard from the one we have today. Plump is in, and you're expected to do your part. You're not just eating for yourself, you're eating for the pharaoh, for the kingdom, and for the gods. The most sought-after food is fresh fish from the Nile. Servants bring in the day's catch, and the chefs prepare it in a variety of ways. From simply grilled to a complex stew with herbs and spices. You also get to eat exotic fruits from the palace gardens, like figs, pomegranates, and grapes. These are considered a luxury, and they are a welcome, sweet treat on a hot day. The palace has its own extensive gardens and granaries, a sign of its self-sufficiency and wealth. Everything you eat is a reminder that you are living in the lap of luxury, a world away from the simple, often meager diet of your family. You are living proof of the pharaoh's riches, a human billboard advertising his prosperity. With your belly full of roasted duck and sweet cakes, you get to experience the other side of life in the harem, leisure, while your days are punctuated by duties like weaving and personal grooming. There are also hours set aside for entertainment and relaxation. This isn't just a fun time, it's another way for the pharaoh to showcase his wealth and for the women to maintain their physical and mental health. The royal court has its own cadre of professional entertainers, but often, the concubines themselves are the main event. A mainstream historical fact is that music and dance were central to ancient Egyptian life, especially at the royal court. Musicians and dancers were highly respected professionals, but many of the women in the harem were also trained in these arts. You spend hours learning songs with a small group of women, accompanied by harps, lutes, and drums. The music is often melodic and rhythmic, with lyrics that praise the gods, the pharaoh, and the beauty of the Nile. Dancing is a similar art form, a series of graceful, fluid movements that tell a story. You learn to move your arms and hands with a deliberate elegance, to sway your hips to the beat of the drum, and to perform intricate steps that require both skill and practice. Your entertainment isn't just limited to music and dance. You and the other women play board games, the most popular of which is called Senet. It's a game of strategy and luck, played on a long board with 2 sets of pawns. It's a bit like a mix of checkers and backgammon, but with a deeper spiritual meaning. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptians believed that playing Senet was a metaphor for the journey of the soul through the afterlife. The squares on the board were symbols of the challenges and obstacles a person would face on their way to eternal life. It's a strange thing to think about, playing a board game that's also a religious allegory. It's like playing Monopoly, but the goal is to get to heaven, and the bank is run by the gods. You also spend a lot of time in the beautiful palace gardens. These gardens are meticulously maintained, filled with sweet-smelling flowers like jasmine and lotus, and crisscrossed with canals that are home to ducks and fish. There are shady places to sit and read, to talk with your friends, or to just enjoy the quiet. Historians still argue whether these gardens were purely for leisure or if they had a deeper symbolic meaning. Some scholars believe they were designed to represent the mythical lands of the gods, a kind of earthly paradise where the pharaoh could commune with the divine. You just know that they are a welcome escape from the enclosed world of the palace, a place where you can breathe the fresh air and feel the sun on your skin. Another form of entertainment is storytelling. The older women in the harem are master storytellers, and they pass on myths and legends of the gods and pharaohs, as well as stories of love and adventure. These stories are a way of preserving history and culture, and they are also a form of education. You learn about the gods, their deeds, their rivalries, and their relationships. You learn about the great pharaohs of the past and their epic battles and triumphs. It's a way of connecting with a world that is much larger than the palace walls, a world of myth and magic. The leisure activities of the harem are a form of controlled relaxation. You are never truly alone, and your movements and actions are always observed. The goal is to keep you healthy, happy, and compliant, a perfect vessel for the pharaoh's will. It's a comfortable existence, but it's still a kind of captivity. And as you sit there, listening to a beautiful story and watching a group of women play a game, you know that this is just a different kind of gilded cage, one with a much softer mattress. While your world has shrunk to the confines of the palace, you are constantly reminded that life in Egypt is vast and complex, and that women play a far more diverse and significant role than just being a part of a harem. The women you see in the palace, the concubines, the wives, and the queen, represent a very small, very specific slice of society. In the world outside these walls, women have a much different kind of power. A mainstream historical fact is that ancient Egyptian women enjoyed a level of legal and financial independence that was almost unheard of in the ancient world. They could own property, manage their own businesses, and even represent themselves in legal matters. A woman could buy and sell land, inherit from her parents, and even make her own will, if she was a wife. She was entitled to a share of her husband's property in the event of a divorce, This wasn't some fringe rite, it was a deeply ingrained part of the legal system. It's a striking contrast to the women in the Pershina, who are, for all intents and purposes, owned by the pharaoh. A woman in a village might be illiterate, but she would still have more legal autonomy than you do. It's a strange paradox. You also learn about the different jobs that women held in society. While the highest positions were typically held by men, women could be scribes, doctors, and priestesses. You hear stories of female temple musicians who were highly respected for their spiritual and musical talents. Some women ran large workshops, supervising dozens of workers in the production of textiles and beer. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that women were even involved in the administration of temples, holding titles like Chief of the Weavers or Overseer of the Granary. So, while men may have held the top-tier political positions, women were the managers, the administrators, and the backbones of many parts of the economy and spiritual life. Historians still argue whether this legal equality translated into true social equality. While a woman could own property, for example, her status was still largely determined by her relationship to the men in her life, her father, her husband, or her son, and there were still many jobs and roles that were reserved exclusively for men. However, the fact that a woman could get a divorce, sue her husband, or own property is a powerful testament to the value placed on women in Egyptian society. It's a level of empowerment that you, as a concubine, can only dream of. The power of women is also seen in the divine. The pantheon is full of powerful goddesses like Isis, Hathor, and Maat. Isis is the mother of all creation, a powerful sorceress and healer. Hathor is the goddess of love, music, and motherhood, and is often depicted as a cow, a symbol of her nurturing nature. Maat is the goddess of truth, justice, and cosmic order, and the pharaoh himself is sworn to uphold her principles. These goddesses are not just minor deities, they are central to the Egyptian worldview, and their power is a reflection of the power that women held in the culture. As you sit with the other concubines, you hear stories of the women who live outside the palace. You hear about a woman who owns a large farm and a woman who runs a successful pottery business. These are not just anecdotes, they are reminders that your life, while luxurious, is not the only way to be a woman in Egypt. It is a way of being an object, a symbol, a vessel. The women outside are subjects, citizens, people. You are something else. It's a humbling thought, but it is also a source of a strange kind of hope, a reminder that the world is much larger than your gilded cage, and as the day fades into night, you find yourself thinking not of the pharaoh, but of the women you've never met, and the lives they lead, free from the heavy weight of a gold necklace. The hum of daily life in the palace is usually a low, constant rhythm, but today it has been replaced by a different kind of energy, a crackling excitement that ripples through the Pershina. A great royal festival is upon you, and for the first time, you'll witness the full spectacle of the pharaoh's power and the religious devotion of his people. The festival is for the god Amun-Ra, and the entire city of Thebes is alive with activity. A mainstream historical fact is that Egyptian festivals were not just parties, they were crucial religious events that reaffirmed the divine connection between the pharaoh and the gods. The most famous of these was the Opet festival, which celebrated the fertility of Amun-Ra and the rebirth of the pharaoh. The procession from Karnak Temple to Luxor Temple was the centerpiece of the event, a massive public display of piety and power. You get to see a small part of this from the palace walls. The sounds of drums and flutes echo from the streets, and you can see a river of people moving toward the temple, all dressed in their best linen. You and the other concubines are not part of the main procession, but you have your own role to play. You are to sing and dance for the pharaoh and the royal family in a private courtyard. It's an honor, but also a test. Your performance must be flawless, a living prayer to the gods. You spend the morning rehearsing with the other women, your voices blending into a single, harmonious melody. The dance is a series of slow, graceful movements, a physical representation of the cosmic order that the pharaoh upholds. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the music played at these festivals wasn't just for entertainment, it was believed to have a magical quality that could invoke the gods and cleanse the spirit. So, your song isn't just a song, it's a piece of divine magic. No pressure. Historians still argue whether the pharaoh's public appearances were for genuine religious devotion or if they were a carefully choreographed political theatre. designed to reinforce his divine status. You, in your small corner of the palace, don't have enough information to form a definitive opinion, but you do know that the spectacle is real. The sight of the pharaoh in his finery, his crown gleaming in the sun, surrounded by his priests and officials, is a powerful sight. It's a living myth, a story unfolding before your eyes, and you are a part of it. The feast that follows is a thing of legend. The tables are groaning under the weight of platters of roasted meat, bowls of stew, baskets of fruit, and jugs of beer and wine. The atmosphere is one of communal joy, a brief moment where the rigid hierarchy of the palace seems to soften. Even the lowliest servants are given a share of the feast, and the sound of laughter and chatter fills the air. You sit with the other concubines, eating and drinking, and for a moment, you forget your place. You're just a person at a party, celebrating a good harvest and the blessing of the gods. The night ends with a light show from torches and oil lamps, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. The air is thick with the scent of incense and the sweet smell of beer. The music continues, a low, hypnotic rhythm that lulls you into a state of sleepy contentment. You feel a strange sense of belonging, a feeling you haven't had since you arrived here. You're not just a concubine, you're a part of this great kingdom, a small player in a grand, ongoing story. And as you finally drift off to sleep, you hear the distant echoes of the festival, a sound that says everything is right in the world. At least for tonight, your days in the harem are not just filled with beauty rituals and social etiquette. They are also a quiet kind of education. You are, after all, a potential mother to a future ruler, and an uneducated mother is not an asset. The palace scribes, both male and female, are tasked with a continuous and low-key tutoring of the women in the Pershina. This is not a formal school with desks and tablets, but an ongoing process of learning through observation and subtle instruction. A mainstream historical fact is that literacy was a rare and highly valued skill in ancient Egypt, primarily confined to scribes and the elite. You are taught the basics of hieratic, a cursive script derived from hieroglyphs that was used for daily administrative tasks and letters. You learn to write on papyrus with a reed pen and black and red ink. The process is slow and meticulous, a test of your patience as you painstakingly form each symbol. You learn to write simple phrases, to count, and to keep basic records. It's not a full education, but it's enough to read a simple letter or a list of household goods. This is a privilege that most of the population, even the free men and women, would never have. The scribes also teach you about the more mainstream historical facts, such as the royal lineage, the names of the gods, and the important festivals of the year. You learn the history of the pharaohs who came before, the great builders and the great conquerors. You are taught about the significance of the Nile and the yearly inundation, and the importance of a well-maintained bureaucracy. This is less about knowledge and more about indoctrination, a way of ensuring that you understand your place in the grand scheme of things and that you can pass that understanding on to your children. It's not just a history lesson, it's a political one. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that scribes would often have to make their own ink by grinding charcoal for black ink and red ochre for red ink. They would then mix the powders with water and a binder, usually a weak gum solution. The ink was then dried into cakes, and they would rehydrate it with a little water for use. You watch them do this, fascinated by the quiet efficiency of the process. It's a very hands-on way of creating knowledge, of turning a simple rock into a powerful tool. You're learning to respect not just the words, but the very process of making them. Historians still argue whether the level of education for the women in the harem was standardized, or if it depended on their potential to be a royal wife. You notice that the women who have a better chance of catching the pharaoh's eye are given more attention, and that their lessons are more advanced. It's a reminder that even your education is a part of the hierarchy, a tool for social climbing. The better you can read and write, the more valuable you are as a potential partner for the pharaoh. Your literacy also gives you a new kind of power. You can read the messages that come in from the outside world. You can write letters to your family, and you can even read some of the temple texts that are brought into the palace. You are no longer just a listener, you are a participant in the flow of information. It's a small thing, but it's a tangible link to a world that is otherwise out of your reach. As you practice writing your name in hieratic, you realize that you are not just a body, you are a mind, and a valuable one at that. Your life in the harem is not all about political intrigue and beauty rituals. There is a quieter, more personal side to it, a side that deals with the ancient Egyptian concepts of love, marriage, and family. While the pharaoh's relationships are all about power, the lives of the common people, and indeed many in the court, are guided by a more recognizable set of values. You hear stories of couples who love each other deeply, who call each other brother and sister not as a familial term, but as a term of endearment that signifies a close, soul-deep connection. This is in sharp contrast to your own situation. A mainstream historical fact is that Egyptian marriage was a civil contract, not a religious ceremony. A man and a woman would simply agree to live together, and a marriage contract, often with legal clauses, was drawn up. The purpose of this contract was not just to unite two people, but to provide for the woman in the event of a divorce or the death of her husband. She was entitled to a share of the property and was given legal protections that were quite progressive for the time. This is a stark difference from the unwritten and unpredictable nature of your own contract with the pharaoh. You learn about the importance of family, not just the nuclear family, but the extended family. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins all lived together and supported each other. The family was the most important social unit, and it was the primary source of identity and security. The children of the pharaoh, even if born to a concubine, were raised by the entire court, a kind of collective parenting that ensured their safety and education. This is your reality now. Your children, should you have any, will belong to the pharaoh and the kingdom, but they will be raised by a village of women. Historians still argue whether the Egyptian ideal of love was more about romantic passion or about the practicalities of a happy household. You hear love songs that speak of a man's desire for his beautiful sister and a woman's love for her husband's sweet voice. But you also know that a successful marriage was one that produced healthy children, provided for the family, and was a partnership of equals. It was a balance of the heart and the mind, and you can see that in the way the older concubines speak of their own families and their hopes for their children. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that ancient Egyptian love poetry was a highly developed art form, and it was full of metaphors and double meanings. A phrase like, "the scent of her hair is like myrrh," was not just a compliment, it was a powerful statement of attraction and desire. These poems were often written on papyrus or pottery shards, and they give us a glimpse into the emotional lives of the ancient Egyptians, a side of them that is often lost in the grandeur of the pyramids and temples. You hear stories of ordinary women who defied convention, of men who risked everything for the woman they loved, and of families who stayed together through famine and war. These stories are a comfort to you, a reminder that the world outside your gilded cage is full of a kind of love and connection that you may never have, but you also know that you are a part of a much larger family now, the family of the pharaoh, and that your loyalty and your love must be directed toward him and the kingdom. It is a lonely kind of love, a political love, but it is your reality now. As the sun sets, casting a warm, golden light on the palace walls, you think of the family you left behind. You wonder if they are happy, if they are safe, and if they think of you. You know that the love you have for them is a kind of love that can't be bought or sold, a love that is more powerful than any political alliance, and as you drift off to sleep, you hold on to that thought, a small, quiet, and very precious thing in a world of opulence and intrigue. In a world defined by its beauty and wealth, you are also confronted with the harsh realities of health and illness in ancient Egypt. Despite all the luxury, disease is a constant threat, and life expectancy, especially for the common people, is not long. The palace has its own doctors, but their knowledge is a strange mix of practical medicine, spiritual beliefs, and magical remedies. You are a potential mother to a royal child, so your health is monitored with a kind of detached efficiency. A mainstream historical fact is that Egyptian doctors were highly respected and often specialized in different fields, from dentistry to surgery. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, an ancient medical text, details a wide range of surgical procedures, from setting broken bones to treating wounds. This is a very practical, hands-on kind of medicine, but it is always mixed with the spiritual. You see doctors offering a patient a healing potion one moment and a magical incantation to ward off a demon the next. It's a very holistic approach, where the body and the spirit are treated as one. You also learn about the various remedies and treatments they use. For a headache, you might be given a poultice of crushed poppy seeds. For a stomachache, a concoction of herbs and fermented dates. You see doctors using honey as an antiseptic for wounds, a practice that we know today is actually quite effective. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that ancient Egyptians would often create eye salves from a mix of animal fat, soot, and crushed malachite. While the soot and fat provided a protective barrier, the malachite, a form of copper ore, actually had some mild antibacterial properties. So, while it looked and felt like magic, there was a tiny kernel of real science behind it. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians understood the concept of disease in the modern sense, or if they saw it as a spiritual affliction caused by evil spirits or angry gods. You see a bit of both. The doctors are very good at setting a bone or stitching a wound, but they are just as likely to offer a prayer to the goddess Sekhmet, the deity of healing and plague. The belief is that if the body is a mirror of the cosmos, then a sick body is a sign that something is out of balance, either on a personal or a cosmic level. The palace doctors are constantly working, and you see them treating everything from minor cuts to serious infections. They are a crucial part of the palace's infrastructure, and their status is almost as high as the scribes. You learn to listen to their advice. Even if it seems a bit strange to you, you are given a specific diet to follow, and you are encouraged to stay active and to keep your body clean. Your health is not just your own, it is an asset of the state. The most terrifying part of this is that the doctors are also the undertakers. You see them preparing bodies for burial, a somber and ritualized process that is a constant reminder of your own mortality. You see them wrap the body in linen, and you know that one day, you too will be wrapped in that same material. It's a strange thing to think about, that the same hands that heal you will one day prepare you for the afterlife. As the day ends, you reflect on the strange and wonderful knowledge of the palace doctors. They are not just healers, they are magicians, priests, and scientists, all wrapped up in one. They are a testament to the Egyptian belief that the universe is a place of order, and that even a sick body can be brought back into harmony. And as you drift off to sleep, you say a small, silent prayer for your health, and for the health of the kingdom. Your life in the palace, while grounded in the physical world of luxury and duty, is also deeply intertwined with the spiritual. The ancient Egyptian concepts of the afterlife are not a distant, abstract belief, but a very real and present reality that shapes your daily life. You are a human being, a vessel for a soul, and one day, you will die. The purpose of your life, in a way, is to prepare for that. A mainstream historical fact is that Egyptians believed in a complex afterlife where the soul, or Ba, and the spirit, or Ka, would leave the body after death and embark on a perilous journey to the next world. The goal of this journey was to reach the field of reeds, a kind of eternal paradise where life was perfect and effortless. But to get there, you had to face a series of challenges, from monstrous demons to a final judgment where your heart would be weighed against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice. You hear stories of this journey from the older concubines, who speak of it with a mix of reverence and fear. They talk about the spells and incantations that are meant to protect the soul, and the funerary texts that are placed in the tomb to guide the deceased through the underworld. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptians believed that your name was a key part of your identity, and that if your name was erased from history, you would cease to exist in the afterlife. This is why pharaohs would often go to great lengths to erase the names of their political rivals from monuments and tombs. So, remember that. Your name isn't just a name, it's a form of eternal security. Historians still argue whether the Egyptian belief in the afterlife was a form of spiritual escapism, or if it was a powerful tool for social control. You see how the belief in a just and orderly afterlife, where good deeds are rewarded and bad deeds are punished, is used to encourage good behavior in the present. You are told that your actions in this life will have a direct impact on your fate in the next, and that your loyalty to the pharaoh and the gods will be rewarded. It's a powerful incentive to follow the rules, even the unwritten ones. The palace itself is full of spiritual symbols and art that are meant to remind you of the afterlife. The walls are covered in murals of the gods, the pharaoh, and scenes from the underworld. The furniture is often decorated with symbols of rebirth and eternal life, like the scarab beetle or the eye of Horus. Everything is a constant, gentle reminder that this life is just a temporary stop on a much longer journey. The air is thick with the scent of incense and the sound of low, rhythmic chanting, a constant spiritual presence. Your own body is a part of this. You learn about the importance of being clean and pure, not just for the pharaoh, but for the gods. You are taught that your body is a temple, and that it must be treated with respect. This is not just a lesson in hygiene, it's a spiritual lesson, a way of preparing your physical self for the journey to the next world. As you lie on your mat at night, you think about the field of reeds, a place where the crops never fail, and the sun always shines. It's a beautiful thought, a promise of a better life, and you know that you are not just a concubine, you are a soul, a spirit, a person on a journey to a place of eternal peace. And as you close your eyes, you say a silent prayer to Osiris, the god of the afterlife, and you ask him to guide you safely to the field of reeds. You feel a strange sense of comfort, a peace that comes from knowing that your life and your death has a purpose beyond the walls of this palace. In the quiet moments of your day, you notice that the palace is full of animals, not just for food or labor, but as living, breathing members of the household. The most prominent of these are the cats. They are everywhere, lounging in the sun-drenched courtyards, weaving between the legs of servants, and sometimes even daring to curl up on a discarded papyrus scroll. You are told that they are not just pets, they are sacred. A mainstream historical fact is that cats were deeply revered in ancient Egypt. They were associated with the goddess Bastet, the deity of home, fertility, and protection. Cats were believed to have the power to ward off evil spirits and to protect the home from snakes and scorpions. Killing a cat, even by accident, was a crime punishable by death. They were mummified and buried with their owners, a testament to the deep affection and respect the Egyptians had for them. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the word for cat in ancient Egyptian was miyu or miit, a sound that is very similar to the meow of a cat. This onomatopoeic naming shows just how closely the Egyptians observed and connected with these animals. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians domesticated cats for practical reasons, like pest control, or for spiritual ones. You see evidence of both. The cats in the palace are excellent hunters, and they keep the rodent population in check. But they are also treated with a kind of reverence that goes beyond mere utility. They are fed well, they are given special sleeping mats, and they are protected from harm. They are a part of the family, and they are a part of the spiritual life of the palace. It's a strange thing to see an animal treated with more respect than some of the servants. But cats aren't the only animals that hold a special place in Egyptian society. You also see dogs, which are used for hunting and as companions. They are often depicted in art alongside their owners, a sign of their close bond. The most common breed is the Tiesum, a kind of greyhound-like dog that was known for its speed and loyalty. You also see monkeys, often baboons, which are kept as pets and are sometimes trained to perform for the royal court. They are a sign of the pharaoh's wealth and his access to exotic lands. The animals in the palace are a constant reminder of the Egyptian belief that the world is a place of balance and order, and that every creature has a role to play. The cats protect the home, the dogs protect the person, and the monkeys provide entertainment. They are all a part of the grand tapestry of life, and their presence is a source of comfort and a reminder of the order of the cosmos. As the sun sets, you watch a cat saunter across the courtyard. Its shadow long and thin, it pauses for a moment, its golden eyes fixed on a distant point, and you can almost feel the ancient, wild spirit that lies beneath its domesticated exterior. You are just a guest in this world, but the cat, in a strange way, is a kind of resident, a living link to the gods and the wild, a small, furry piece of a very large and complex spiritual puzzle. And you know that you are not just a part of the human world, you are a part of the animal one too, and that the two are inextricably linked. Your life in the palace feels like a dream, but you are constantly reminded of the grand scale of the world outside, a world built by human hands for the gods. The most awe-inspiring reminders are the stories you hear of the great pyramids and temples. You are in Thebes, but the memory and legacy of the Old Kingdom is everywhere, a testament to the power of the pharaohs and their connection to the divine. You learn that the great pyramids of Giza, a site of wonder and mystery, were not built by slaves, as many stories now tell, but by skilled labourers who were well fed and housed. A mainstream historical fact that completely changes the narrative. They worked for a salary and were proud to be a part of such a monumental project, a collective act of piety and a way of securing their place in the afterlife. It was a national endeavor, a testament to the order and organization of the state. The construction of these monumental structures was a feat of logistics and engineering. You hear stories of tens of thousands of men, from stonemasons to carpenters, all working together in perfect harmony. They used simple tools, chisels, hammers, and ropes, to move stones weighing many tons. A quirky or fringe tidbit you find hard to believe: they used sledges on wet sand, and ramps to move the massive blocks into place. The stones themselves were quarried from distant locations, a testament to the organizational power of the kingdom. It wasn't just about building a tomb, it was about demonstrating the pharaoh's ability to command the resources of the entire nation. It was a project that could take a lifetime to complete, and many of the workers would have died on site, their own little bit of paradise already secured by their contribution. The temples, like the Karnak temple in Thebes, which you can see from the palace walls, are another story entirely. They are not just buildings, they are living representations of the cosmos. The halls are lined with colossal statues of gods and pharaohs, and the walls are covered with murals that tell the story of creation and the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife. Historians still argue whether the temples were built primarily for religious purposes or if they were a form of political propaganda. You can see how they are both. They are places of worship and reverence, but they are also a powerful statement of the pharaoh's divine authority. They are a physical manifestation of the order that the pharaoh brings to the world, a direct link between the heavens and the earth. The construction of these temples is an ongoing process. You see the masons and sculptors at work, painstakingly carving the hieroglyphs and the images of the gods into the stone. They are artists, but they are also scribes, for the images and words on the walls are a kind of sacred text, a way of preserving the history and the beliefs of the kingdom. The work is slow and meticulous, a testament to the Egyptian belief that things should be done correctly, for eternity. As you sit in the garden, a small, insignificant part of the palace, you look out at the colossal temple in the distance. Its pylons, or gateways, are so large they look like mountains, and you can see the light reflecting off the gilded tops of its obelisks. It's a humbling sight, a reminder that you are just a small piece of a much larger story, a story that is etched in stone and told in a language of symbols and gods. And you know that while your life in the palace may be a luxury, it is also a kind of captivity, a beautiful cage that is a part of a much grander and much more serious divine plan. Your life is defined by the Nile. It is the lifeblood of Egypt, a long, snaking body of water that brings both abundance and danger. You can see it from the palace, a shimmering, silver ribbon that cuts through the arid landscape. The river isn't just a geographical feature, it is a god, a source of life, and a central character in every story you hear. A mainstream historical fact is that the annual flooding of the Nile, or the inundation, was the single most important event in the Egyptian calendar. The floodwaters would deposit a rich, black silt on the land, making it incredibly fertile. This black land, or Kemet, was a stark contrast to the red land, or Deshret, of the surrounding desert. Without the inundation, there would be no agriculture, no civilization, and no pharaohs. The entire kingdom was organized around this yearly cycle of rising waters and receding land, and your life, even in the palace, is a part of that rhythm. You see the scribes making a record of the flood's height, a piece of information that will determine the taxes for the year and the mood of the people. The Nile is also the primary highway of the kingdom. You see boats of all sizes sailing up and down the river, from small fishing skiffs to massive barges carrying stone for the temples and grain for the granaries. It is a bustling, chaotic waterway, a symbol of the kingdom's economic power and its ability to connect different parts of its vast territory. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptians believed that the Nile was a physical manifestation of the god Hapi, the deity of the inundation and fertility. So, when they said the Nile was a god, they weren't being metaphorical, they meant it. They even had rituals and offerings to thank Hapi for his generosity. Historians still argue whether the Nile was more a source of fear or a source of comfort. On one hand, the inundation could be unpredictable, and a flood that was too high or too low could spell disaster. On the other hand, it was a constant, reliable presence that brought life to the desert. The Egyptians managed the river with a complex system of canals and dams, a feat of engineering that allowed them to control the flow of water and to ensure that as much land as possible was irrigated. You see the engineers and the workers from the palace working tirelessly to maintain these systems, a testament to the importance of the river to the kingdom. The river is also a place of spiritual significance. You hear stories of the sun god Ra sailing his boat across the heavens, a journey that mirrors the journey of a boat on the Nile. The river is the pathway to the afterlife, and you are told that the souls of the dead are ferried across its waters to the next world. You feel a strange connection to the river, a sense of belonging that you don't feel in the palace. It is a constant, a presence that has been here for thousands of years and will be here for thousands more. As the sun sets over the Nile, you watch the boats on the water, their sails catching the last rays of light. The river is a mirror of the sky, and you can see the stars reflected in its waters. It's a beautiful sight. A moment of peace in a world that is so full of drama and intrigue. You know that you are not just a part of the Pharaoh's kingdom, you are a part of the Nile's, and that it is a power far older and far more constant than any king or queen. It's a humbling thought, but it is also a source of a quiet, deep comfort. Your life in the palace, for all its luxury and intrigue, is a bubble. You are a part of the 1%, a member of a tiny elite whose lives are worlds away from the daily struggles of the common people. While you eat roasted duck and wear fine linen, the vast majority of Egyptians are living a very different and much harder existence. You get glimpses of this life from the servants and guards, and from your own memories, a stark contrast that is both humbling and sobering. A mainstream historical fact is that the ancient Egyptian society was a tiered system, with the pharaoh and his court at the top, followed by priests, scribes, and officials. Below them were the soldiers and artisans, and at the bottom were the farmers, fishermen, and labourers who made up the bulk of the population. These people lived a life that was inextricably tied to the rhythms of the Nile and the yearly inundation. Their homes were simple mud brick dwellings, and their diet consisted mainly of bread, beer, and a variety of vegetables and fish. Meat was a luxury, reserved for special occasions or religious festivals. You hear stories of the farmers toiling in the fields, their bodies caked with the black silt of the Nile. They work from dawn until dusk. Their lives a cycle of planting, harvesting, and paying taxes to the state. Their clothing is simple and functional, a far cry from your pleated linen gowns. Their jewellery is made of simple beads or copper, not the gold and lapis lazuli that you wear. Their entertainment is simple storytelling and the occasional festival, not the elaborate musical performances of the royal court. It's a life of hard work and simple pleasures, a life of community and shared struggle. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptian farmers would often use a primitive form of scarecrow, made of reeds and old rags, to keep birds away from their crops. They also had a system of communal labour, where an entire village would work together to build a canal or a dam, a testament to their strong sense of community and cooperation. It's a different kind of world, a world where survival depends on your neighbour, not on a pharaoh who lives a world away. Historians still argue whether the life of the common Egyptian was one of drudgery or contentment. On one hand, their lives were often short and full of hard labour. On the other hand, they had a strong sense of community, a deep connection to their land and their gods, and a rich cultural life that was expressed in their songs, stories, and art. They were not just a faceless mass, they were individuals with their own families, their own dreams, and their own gods. Their life was one of order and predictability, a cycle of work and rest that was governed by the rhythm of the sun and the Nile. As you sit in the palace gardens, listening to the soft plash of the fountain and the distant murmur of the city, you think of the people who are out there living their lives, and you feel a strange sense of disconnect. You are a concubine, a member of the elite, but you are also a prisoner. The people outside are free, and their lives, while hard, are their own. You are a part of a machine, a cog in a great system of power and wealth, and you know that you can never go back to the world you left behind. The gilded cage is comfortable, but it is a cage nonetheless, and you wonder for a moment, if the hard life of the common people is a life of more freedom than your own. The palace is not a self-sufficient entity, it is a massive household, and it is run on the backs of an army of servants and slaves, whose lives are a stark contrast to your own. You see them everywhere, a quiet, efficient presence that keeps the gears of the palace turning. They are the water carriers, the cooks, the cleaners, the hairdressers, and the countless others who make your life of luxury possible. Their existence is a constant reminder of your own privilege, and a humbling one at that. A mainstream historical fact is that the Egyptian word for slave was often used to describe anyone in a state of servitude, whether they were a prisoner of war, a debtor, or a child who had been sold into servitude by their parents. It wasn't always a permanent status, and a slave could, in theory, buy their freedom or be released by their master. This is a far cry from the chattel slavery of other ancient societies. They were, in essence, a kind of owned labour force, and their well-being was in the best interest of their owners. As a healthy servant was a productive one, you notice the different roles of the servants. The women who attend to you are often older, with a kind of quiet dignity that comes from a lifetime of service. They know the rhythms of the palace, the moods of the royals, and the unwritten rules of the Pershina. They are a source of information and a well of wisdom, and you learn to treat them with respect, as their knowledge can be a powerful tool. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the servants would often have their own informal hierarchy, with a head servant who was responsible for the behaviour and performance of her staff. This little kingdom within a kingdom had its own rules and its own politics, and you learn to navigate it with care. Historians still argue whether the relationship between a master and a servant in ancient Egypt was more paternalistic or more oppressive. You see both. The servants are well fed and housed, and they are protected from the dangers of the outside world, but they are also completely at the mercy of their masters, and a single act of disobedience could result in a severe punishment. They are not free, and they can be traded or sold at the whim of the pharaoh. They are a kind of living property, and you see the quiet desperation in their eyes, a constant reminder that their fate is not their own. You also get to see the different roles of the slaves who work in the palace. The male slaves are often foreign prisoners of war, and they are tasked with the heaviest and most unpleasant jobs. From quarrying stone to working in the kitchens, they are often treated with less respect than the Egyptian servants, and their lot is a hard one. You see them from a distance, their bodies glistening with sweat, their faces grim and weary. They are a living testament to the pharaoh's conquests and his power. The life of a servant is one of constant work and little reward, but it is also a life of community. They live together in simple quarters, and they have their own songs, their own stories, and their own gods. They are a separate class, but they are a cohesive one. And as you watch them go about their business, you feel a strange sense of empathy. You are both prisoners of this palace, but your gilded cage is a world away from their simple one. You are a concubine, a valued commodity, but you are also a servant of a different kind, and you know that you are no more free than they are. Your life in the palace is a series of controlled luxuries, and a great deal of that luxury comes from the far corners of the world. The Kingdom of Egypt is not an isolated island. It is a hub of a vast and complex network of trade that brings exotic goods and foreign peoples to your doorstep. You see the evidence of this network everywhere, from the spices in your food to the textiles you wear. It's a constant reminder of the pharaoh's power and his reach beyond the borders of Egypt. A mainstream historical fact is that the New Kingdom was a period of unprecedented international trade and diplomacy. Egypt traded with a variety of nations, including Nubia to the south, the Levant to the east, and the lands of Punt, a mythical land of riches that was likely somewhere in modern-day Eritrea or Somalia. You see the goods that come from these lands: ebony and ivory from Nubia, incense and myrrh from Punt, and lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, which seems unbelievably far. These goods are not just valuable, they are a symbol of the pharaoh's dominance over the known world. You also see the people who come with these goods: foreign merchants, emissaries, and even princesses are a common sight in the palace. You see people with different skin colours, different accents, and different styles of dress, all a testament to the global nature of the kingdom. It's a very cosmopolitan place, a melting pot of cultures and customs. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptians often depicted foreigners on their art as a way of demonstrating their power over them, with the pharaoh shown as a giant figure triumphing over a smaller, helpless foreign leader. It's a kind of ancient political cartoon. But you see the very real, very human people that these depictions are based on. Historians still argue whether the Egyptian trade network was more a system of equal exchange or a form of dominance where Egypt used its power to extract resources from other nations. You see how the pharaoh's emissaries are treated with respect, and how the foreign merchants are given a warm welcome. But you also know that these relationships are not a partnership of equals. They are a relationship between a powerful empire and its weaker, but still valuable, trading partners. The trade isn't just about goods, it's about ideas. You see the scribes talking with foreign dignitaries, and you know that they are exchanging knowledge, from new methods of agriculture to new ideas about medicine and religion. It's a flow of information that enriches the kingdom and makes it stronger. Your life in the palace, while a kind of captivity, is also an education, a front-row seat to the global politics and culture of the ancient world. As you walk through the courtyards, you see a caravan of camels being unloaded in the distance, their saddles laden with exotic goods. The air is thick with the scent of spices and foreign perfumes, a smell that speaks of distant lands and strange customs. You know that you may never leave the walls of this palace, but you can travel the world through the goods and the people that come here. It's a small comfort, a little window into a world that is out of your reach, a world that is both full of danger and full of promise. Your eyes have become accustomed to the art that surrounds you. The palace is a living gallery, its walls covered in intricate murals, its halls filled with majestic statues. The art isn't just decorative, it's a form of communication, a way of telling the story of the kingdom, the gods, and the pharaoh. It's a permanent record of everything that is important to the Egyptian worldview. A mainstream historical fact is that Egyptian art followed a strict set of conventions. People and objects were depicted from their most recognizable angle. So a person's head was shown in profile, but their eye was shown from the front. Their shoulders and chest were shown from the front, but their legs and feet were shown in profile. This wasn't a lack of skill, it was a deliberate choice, a way of showing the most complete picture of a person or object. It was an art that was meant to be read, not just looked at, and it was a language that everyone, from the lowest peasant to the highest pharaoh, could understand. The murals on the palace walls depict scenes of the pharaoh's victories in battle, his offerings to the gods, and his daily life. They are a form of political propaganda, a way of reinforcing the pharaoh's divine authority. But they are also a form of religious instruction, a way of teaching the people about the gods and their rituals. The colours are bright and vibrant, made from natural pigments like malachite for green, ochre for red and yellow, and lapis lazuli for blue. The colours are so vivid that they still look fresh thousands of years later, a testament to the quality of the materials and the skill of the artists. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptian artists didn't sign their work. They were seen as artisans, not as individual creators, and their work was a collective act of piety, a way of serving the gods and the kingdom. So, all that beautiful art you see is anonymous, a kind of selfless act of creation. Historians still argue whether the art was meant to be a literal depiction of reality or a more idealized version of it. You see the pharaoh in the murals, always youthful, always strong, always a conqueror. You know that he is a human being, with all his flaws and weaknesses, but the art presents him as a god, a perfect being who is a master of the universe. It's a way of turning a man into a myth, a way of making the temporary eternal. The sculptures in the palace are just as powerful. Colossal statues of the pharaoh and the gods stand in the halls and courtyards, their impassive faces a silent reminder of their power. The sculptures are made of a variety of materials, from hard granite to soft limestone, and they are so lifelike that they seem to be watching you. You notice that the statues of the pharaoh are often shown with one foot in front of the other, a pose that signifies that he is always in motion, always on the move, always in command. It's a small detail, but it speaks volumes about the pharaoh's role as the leader of the kingdom. As you walk through the palace, you are surrounded by these images of power and divinity. The art is not just a part of your world, it is your world. It tells you who you are, what you should believe, and what your purpose is. It's a beautiful, elegant, and deeply unsettling form of control, a way of shaping your reality without you even knowing it. And you know that you are not just a person, you are a piece of art, a living sculpture in the pharaoh's great gallery. Your life in the palace while surrounded by the beauty of the living, is also deeply intertwined with the rituals of the dead. You are a human, and you will one day die. But for a person of your status, death is not an end, but a transformation. The pharaoh's court and his family will not simply be buried, they will be mummified, a process that is both a scientific endeavor and a profound spiritual ritual. You hear stories of this process, and you know that one day it will be your turn. A mainstream historical fact is that mummification was a complex, 70-day process designed to preserve the body so that the spirit and the soul could return to it after death. The process began with the removal of the internal organs, which were placed in special canopic jars. The brain was removed through the nose with a hook, a quirky or fringe tidbit you find both fascinating and horrifying. The body was then packed with natron salt, a natural drying agent, for 40 days to remove all moisture. Finally, the body was wrapped in hundreds of feet of linen bandages, and amulets and charms were placed between the layers to protect the deceased on their journey to the afterlife. It was a meticulous process, a kind of sacred embalming that was performed by priests and embalmers with a deep understanding of human anatomy and chemistry. The purpose of mummification was not just to preserve the body, it was to turn it into a divine being, an a transfigured and effective spirit who could move freely between the living and the dead. The body was seen as a vehicle for the spirit, and it had to be prepared for the long journey ahead. Historians still argue whether the embalmers understood the scientific reasons for what they were doing, or if they were simply following a set of ancient rituals. You see how the embalmers work with a kind of quiet reverence, as if they are not just preparing a body but preparing a god for his or her final journey. You also learn about the different levels of mummification. The pharaoh's body is given the full treatment, but a lesser noble might get a less elaborate process, and a common person might get a simple burial in the desert sand. Where the dry heat would naturally preserve the body, your own status means that you will likely be mummified, but perhaps not with the same level of luxury as the pharaoh. It's a sobering thought, but it's also a comforting one. You are a part of a system that believes in a life after death, and that your body will be a part of that journey. The ritual is not just about the body, it's about the soul. The opening of the mouth ceremony, a key part of the funeral ritual, was a magical rite designed to restore the deceased's ability to eat, drink, and speak in the afterlife. It's a way of bringing a person back to life, of giving them the tools they need to navigate the next world. You see the priests practicing this ritual, their movements slow and deliberate, their voices a low, rhythmic chant. It's a beautiful and unsettling sight, a dance between the living and the dead. As you sit in the quiet of your room, you think about your own body, so carefully tended and adorned. One day, it will be a vessel for a spirit on a long and difficult journey. It's a strange thought, but it is also a source of comfort. You are not just a person who will die, you are a person who will be transformed, a soul on a journey to a new life. And you know that your place in the palace, your luxury, your beauty, is all just a preparation for that final, and most important, journey. In the quiet moments of your day, you often find yourself looking at the walls, at the papyrus scrolls, and at the objects that surround you. They are all covered in a strange, beautiful script, a language of pictures and symbols that seems to hold the secrets of the universe. This is hieroglyphs, the writing system of ancient Egypt, and it is a language you are now learning to read. It's a key part of your education, a way of connecting you to the very soul of the kingdom. A mainstream historical fact is that hieroglyphs were a complex and highly symbolic system of writing that combined logograms, symbols representing a whole word, phonograms, symbols representing a sound, and determinatives, symbols that clarified the meaning of a word. It was a sacred form of writing, a language of the gods, and it was used for monumental inscriptions on temples and tombs. It's a very different system from the hieratic script you are learning for daily use, which is a faster, more cursive form of hieroglyphs. It's like the difference between formal, printed text and casual handwriting. You learn that the word hieroglyph comes from the Greek words hieros, sacred, and glyph, carving, a name that was given to them by the Greeks who saw the script on the temples. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptians believed that the god Thoth, the deity of knowledge and writing, invented hieroglyphs and that they were a gift from the gods to humanity. So, When you are reading hieroglyphs, you are not just reading, you are communing with the divine. It's a very spiritual act, a way of connecting with the very essence of the universe. Historians still argue whether the pharaohs and the royal family were all fully literate in hieroglyphs. While they could certainly read and understand the basic symbols, the complex nature of the script meant that a great deal of the reading and writing was left to the scribes. You are taught enough to understand the major inscriptions on the walls and the names of the gods, but you are not expected to be a master of the script. It's a way of giving you a glimpse into the sacred world of the gods without giving you the full power of a scribe. The scribes in the palace are a different breed of person. They are educated, well-fed, and they hold a powerful position in the kingdom. They are the keepers of knowledge, the writers of history, and the administrators of the state. They are the ones who can read and write the sacred words that make the kingdom run. You watch them work, their reed pens flying across the papyrus, and you know that their power comes not from their physical strength or their royal lineage, but from their mastery of this strange, beautiful language. As you sit in the quiet of the library, practicing your hieratic, you look at a scroll of hieroglyphs. The symbols seem to dance and whisper, a kind of silent song that tells the story of the kingdom. It's a humbling thought that a simple picture can hold so much meaning, so much history, so much power. You are not just a concubine, you are a student of the sacred, a person who is learning to read the language of the gods. And as you trace a symbol with your finger, you feel a strange sense of connection to a world that is so much bigger than yourself. You're a part of a written tradition that is as old as the desert itself. The names of the pharaohs are a constant presence in your life, but some names stand out more than others. One name that you hear whispered with a mixture of awe and confusion is that of Hatshepsut. She was not a king, but a queen, and she ruled Egypt not just as a regent but as a full-fledged pharaoh. Her story is a testament to the power of women in ancient Egypt, a power that you, a humble concubine, can only dream of. A mainstream historical fact is that Hatshepsut was one of the most successful pharaohs of the New Kingdom. She ruled for over 20 years. A period of great peace and prosperity. She sent a famous expedition to the land of Punt, a journey that brought back exotic goods and a great deal of wealth to Egypt. She also embarked on a massive building campaign, including her stunning mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, a monument that is a masterpiece of ancient architecture. She was a ruler who defied convention and proved that a woman could be just as powerful and just as successful as a man. You hear stories of Hatshepsut and you see her depicted in art. But there is a strange discrepancy. She is often shown as a man, with a male body and a false beard, the symbol of a pharaoh's authority. This is a quirky or fringe tidbit that you find both confusing and intriguing. Why would a woman who was so powerful hide her gender? Historians still argue whether this was a political statement, a way of saying that she was not a woman but a pharaoh, or if it was a religious necessity, a way of fulfilling the pharaoh's role as the divine son of the gods. You don't have enough information to know the answer. But you see how a person can be both a man and a woman, both a king and a queen, all at the same time. Hatshepsut's legacy is a complicated one. After her death, her successor, Thutmose III, seems to have tried to erase her from history. Her statues were toppled, her name was erased from monuments, and her image was defaced. Historians still argue whether this was an act of personal revenge or a political move designed to restore the traditional male line of succession. You see how easy it is to be forgotten, how a person's entire existence can be erased with a simple chisel and a powerful decree. It's a terrifying thought, a reminder that your own life is as fleeting as a whisper on the wind. But Hatshepsut's story is also a source of inspiration. She was a woman who was not content to be a queen. She wanted to be a pharaoh. She defied the expectations of her time, and she left a legacy that would endure for thousands of years. She is a powerful symbol of a woman who took charge of her own destiny, a destiny that you, a concubine, can only dream of. As you walk through the palace, you think of Hatshepsut, a woman who once walked these same halls, a woman who ruled the kingdom with a firm hand and a clear vision. You are not a pharaoh, but you are a woman, and you know that your own life, while small, is a part of a much larger story, a story that is etched in stone and told in a language of symbols and power, and you know that the legacy of Hatshepsut is a part of you, a part of every woman who has ever lived in this kingdom, a small but powerful reminder that the power of a woman is not just in her beauty or her fertility, but in her will. Your life in the palace, while often a calm and predictable rhythm, is also a delicate dance of political machinations. The pharaoh may be a god on earth, but his court is a nest of vipers, and every action, every word, every gesture is a piece of a larger puzzle. You are not a player in this game, but you are a pawn, and you are constantly aware of the intrigues that swirl around you, a silent observer in a world of whispers and hidden agendas. A mainstream historical fact is that the Egyptian court was a hotbed of political rivalry, with different factions vying for the pharaoh's favor. The most powerful people were often the vizier, who was the pharaoh's chief minister, and the high priest of Amun-Ra, who controlled the vast wealth of the temples. These men were constantly maneuvering for power, and their personal rivalries often had a direct impact on the kingdom. You see their emissaries and their spies everywhere, a constant, quiet presence that seems to be watching and listening to everything. You also see the power of the harem in this political game. The great royal wife, as the mother of the heir, is a powerful figure, but her position is not always secure. A concubine who bears a son to the pharaoh, especially one who goes on to become a king, can dramatically change the power dynamics of the court. This is a quirky or fringe tidbit that you find both terrifying and hopeful. Your fertility is not just a personal matter, it is a political weapon. You are a potential kingmaker, and that gives you a strange kind of power, a power that you can't use, but one that you have nonetheless. Historians still argue whether the pharaoh was an absolute ruler or if he had to contend with the power of his court and the priests. You see how the pharaoh, while powerful, is not all-powerful. He has to listen to the advice of his vizier, he has to appease the priests, and he has to manage the rivalries of his family. He is a god, yes. But he is a god who has to deal with the messy, human world of politics and intrigue. You see how he uses his charisma and his divine authority to keep the peace. But you also see the tension in his face, a constant, low-level anxiety that comes from ruling a kingdom with so many competing interests. The most dangerous game in the court is the game of succession. When a pharaoh is old or ill, the competition to be the next king is fierce. The sons of the different wives and concubines are all potential heirs, and their mothers and their factions will do anything to ensure their son's place on the throne. You hear the whispers of poison, of betrayal, and of assassinations. It's a very real danger, a constant, simmering threat that hangs in the air like a cloud. As you sit in the quiet of the harem, you think of the political games that are being played around you. You are not a player, but you are a part of the board, a piece that can be moved or sacrificed at any moment. Your life is a kind of performance, a beautiful facade that hides a very dangerous reality, and you know that your survival depends not on your beauty or your grace, but on your ability to navigate this treacherous world of whispers and intrigue. It's a humbling thought, but it is also a source of a strange, quiet kind of strength. In a world without modern calendars, clocks, or even a sense of the Earth's orbit, the Egyptians were masters of time. Their knowledge of the stars was not just for spiritual purposes, it was a very practical tool for managing the kingdom. You see the scribes and the priests at work, their eyes on the heavens, their minds on the rhythms of the Nile and the needs of the people. This is the world of Egyptian astronomy, and you are learning to read its symbols. A mainstream historical fact is that the ancient Egyptians developed a sophisticated calendar system that was based on the yearly flooding of the Nile. The calendar had 3 seasons: Akhet, the inundation; Peret, the growth; and Shamu, the harvest. Each season had 4 months of 30 days each, with an extra 5 epigomenal days added at the end of the year to bring the total to 365. This calendar was incredibly accurate, a testament to the Egyptians' ability to observe and record the natural world. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the start of the Egyptian New Year was marked by the helical rising of the star Sirius, which was called Sopdet by the Egyptians. It was a moment of great celebration, a signal that the Nile would soon begin its annual flood, bringing life to the land. Historians still argue whether the Egyptian calendar was more for agricultural or religious purposes. You see how it is both. The calendar is a tool for managing the planting and harvesting of crops, but it is also a way of organizing the religious festivals and rituals. The temples are all aligned with the rising and setting of specific stars, and the priests use their knowledge of the heavens to determine the most auspicious time for a ceremony. The pharaoh himself is seen as a kind of high priest, a living link between the heavens and the earth. and his ability to read the stars is a part of his divine authority. You also learn about the different constellations that the Egyptians observed. They saw the stars as gods and goddesses, and they believed that their movements in the night sky were a reflection of the will of the heavens. They had constellations for the hippopotamus, the lion, and the falcon, a whole bestiary of divine animals that moved across the night sky. These constellations were not just for show, they were a kind of spiritual map, a way of navigating the heavens and the afterlife. The palace has its own astronomical observatories, simple structures with a clear view of the night sky. You see the priests at work, their eyes fixed on the stars, their hands holding a simple cord with a plumb bob, a tool they use to measure the angle of a star. It's a very hands-on kind of science, a direct communion with the heavens. You are not a priest, but you are learning to read the sky, a way of connecting with a world that is so much larger than your own. As you sit in the courtyard at night, you look up at the stars, and you feel a strange sense of connection to the ancient people who once looked up at that same sky and saw not just a bunch of lights, but a sacred book, a map to the divine. You are a part of that tradition now, a person who understands that the universe is not a chaotic, random place, but a place of order, a place that is governed by the rhythms of the stars and the flow of the Nile. It's a humbling and comforting thought, a quiet kind of magic that you carry with you in your heart. Despite the beauty and security of your life in the palace, you are never truly safe. The ancient world is a place of constant challenges and dangers, from the invisible threats of disease to the very real threats of famine and war. Your life, while luxurious, is still fragile, and you are constantly aware of the thin line that separates life from death, order from chaos. A mainstream historical fact is that ancient Egypt, for all its medical knowledge, was still a place where life expectancy was short, and where a simple infection could be a death sentence. You see the palace doctors at work, but you also see them fail. A fever that you might call a simple cold today could kill a person in a matter of days. A cut that you might treat with a bandage could become a festering wound that takes a person's arm, or their life. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptian diet, while varied, was also full of sand and grit from the stone grinders used to mill grain, and this led to a very high rate of dental problems. From abscesses to tooth loss, you see the older concubines with worn-down teeth, a testament to the fact that even the most luxurious diet couldn't save you from the gritty reality of life. Historians still argue whether the ancient Egyptians understood the concept of contagious disease. While they certainly had a good understanding of hygiene and cleanliness, they didn't have a modern understanding of germs and viruses. They believed that disease was caused by a combination of evil spirits, angry gods, and a lack of balance in the body. So, while they would treat a wound with honey to prevent infection, they would also offer a prayer to the goddess Sekhmet, the deity of plague and healing. It's a very different worldview, a world where every illness is both a physical and a spiritual problem. You also face the constant threat of famine. The Nile may be a reliable source of life, but a flood that is too low or too high could spell disaster for the entire kingdom. You hear stories of the famines that have ravaged the land, and you know that even the palace, for all its wealth, is not immune to the effects of a bad harvest. The pharaoh may be a god on earth, but he is still at the mercy of the gods of the river and the sky. This is a humbling thought, a reminder that your life is not just your own, but it is also a part of a much larger and much more precarious ecosystem. The most terrifying danger, however, is not a famine or a disease, it is the danger of war. The new kingdom is a period of great conquest, and the pharaoh is often at war with the neighboring kingdoms. You hear the stories of the battles, of the soldiers who come back from war with missing limbs and terrible wounds. You also hear the stories of the prisoners of war who are brought back to the palace as slaves. It's a very real danger, a constant, simmering threat that hangs in the air like a cloud. As you sit in the quiet of the harem, you think of the dangers that surround you. You are a concubine, a valued commodity, but you are also a human being, a person who is vulnerable to all the dangers of the ancient world. You are not a god, you are not a queen, and you are not a hero. You are just a person, and you are trying to survive in a world that is both beautiful and terrifying, a world that is both a paradise and a prison, and you know that your life, for all its luxury, is as fragile as a single thread of linen, and that it could be cut at any moment. In the midst of the palace's political intrigue and daily rituals, there is one constant that permeates every corner: music and dance. These aren't just forms of entertainment, they are a vital part of ancient Egyptian culture, interwoven with religion, work, and social life. You are a part of this now, not just as an audience member but as a performer. A mainstream historical fact is that music in ancient Egypt was an essential component of religious rituals, public festivals, and private entertainment. The pharaoh's court employed professional musicians who played a variety of instruments, including harps, lutes, flutes, clarinets, and percussion. You spend your days learning to play a simple lute, a small stringed instrument with a soft, melodic sound. You also learn to sing, your voice blending with the others to create a harmonious chorus. The lyrics are often poetic, praising the gods and the pharaoh, or they are simple love songs that speak of beauty and desire. It's a very different kind of music from what you are used to, a rhythmic, hypnotic sound that seems to vibrate through your very soul. Dance is also a vital part of your life. You learn a series of graceful, fluid movements that tell a story. The dances are often symbolic, with movements that mimic the flow of the Nile, the flight of a bird, or the rhythmic movements of a harvest. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptians believed that dance had a magical quality that could influence the gods and spirits. A dance performed in the temple could bring rain, and a dance performed at a funeral could guide the deceased to the afterlife. It's a very spiritual art form, a way of using your body to communicate with the divine. Historians still argue whether the Egyptian music was based on a simple scale or if it was more complex. You are told that the music is a reflection of the cosmic order, a perfect harmony that mirrors the balance of the universe. The musicians in the palace are not just performers, they are a kind of living prayer, and their music is a constant, gentle offering to the gods. You feel this in your bones, a sense of rhythm and purpose that transcends the mundane. The pharaoh's court is not the only place where music and dance thrive. You see the common people singing and dancing at their festivals, their movements more spontaneous and their music more simple, but no less joyful. You hear the rhythmic chants of the workers in the fields, a kind of call and response that makes the hard work a little easier. Music is everywhere, a constant soundtrack to the life of the kingdom. It's a way of celebrating, a way of mourning, and a way of connecting with each other and with the gods. As you sit in the quiet of the night, you hear a distant drumbeat and a soft, rhythmic melody. It's a song you've heard 100 times, a simple melody that speaks of love and a longing for home. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you are not a concubine in a palace. You are a human being, a part of a much larger and much more beautiful story, and you know that the music, like the Nile, is a constant, a presence that has been here for thousands of years and will be here for thousands more. For all the time you spend inside the palace walls, there are brief, precious moments when you get to experience the world outside. The most vibrant of these is a visit to the marketplace in Thebes. It's a sensory explosion, a chaotic, bustling world that is a stark contrast to the quiet, controlled environment of the palace. It's a place where you can see the real life of the kingdom, a place of commerce, of gossip, and of human connection. A mainstream historical fact is that the Egyptian economy was based on a barter system, not a currency. People traded goods for goods, a system that was both simple and complex. A farmer might trade a basket of grain for a tool from a blacksmith, and a potter might trade a pot for a piece of linen from a weaver. It's a very personal form of commerce, one where you have to know the value of your goods and the needs of your neighbors. You see the market in action, a cacophony of voices, a dance of negotiation and exchange. The market is a global hub, a place where goods from all over the kingdom and the world are sold. You see people from Nubia selling ebony and gold, people from the Levant selling olive oil and wine, and people from all over Egypt selling their own local goods, from papyrus to pottery. It's a place of colour and sound, a place where you can get a glimpse of the vast and diverse world that exists outside the palace walls. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptians would often use ostraca, or pottery shards, as a kind of ancient receipt or a record of a transaction. You see the scribes at work, their reed pens flying across the shards, a quiet testament to the order that exists even in this chaos. Historians still argue whether the Egyptian marketplace was a fair and equitable place, or if it was a place where the powerful could take advantage of the weak. You see a bit of both. The system is based on trust, and a dishonest merchant would quickly be found out. But you also see the wealthy and the powerful getting the best goods, and the poor and the weak getting the leftovers. It's a very human place, with all the good and all the bad that comes with it. The market is also a social hub, a place where people meet to gossip, to share news, and to tell stories. You hear the latest rumors about the pharaoh, the latest news from the war front, and the latest stories of the gods. It's a constant flow of information, a kind of living newspaper that you are a part of. It's a refreshing change from the hushed tones of the palace, and you find yourself listening with a kind of desperate hunger. As you walk through the market, the smells, the sounds, and the colours all combine to create a kind of beautiful, overwhelming symphony. You are just a visitor here, a person who is passing through, but you feel a strange sense of connection to the people around you, a sense of belonging that you don't feel in the palace. It's a reminder that the world is much bigger and much more beautiful than your gilded cage, and that you are a part of it, even if just for a moment. Your life in the palace, while often peaceful, is built on a foundation of military power. The New Kingdom is a period of great conquest, and the pharaoh's army is a constant, formidable presence. You see the soldiers in the palace, their armor gleaming in the sun, their weapons a silent reminder of the kingdom's might. You hear stories of the battles and the triumphs, and you know that your life of luxury is a direct result of their courage and their strength. A mainstream historical fact is that the Egyptian army of the New Kingdom was a highly organized and professional force. It was divided into different divisions, each named after a major deity, like the division of Amun, the division of Ra, and the division of Ptah. The army was a mix of native Egyptians and foreign mercenaries, and they were equipped with the latest technology, including chariots and composite bows. You see the chariots in the palace courtyards, their bronze fittings gleaming in the sun, a testament to the kingdom's military prowess. The pharaoh's role in the military is not just as a commander, but as a god on the battlefield. He is often depicted in art as a larger-than-life figure, a divine warrior who single-handedly triumphs over his enemies. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the pharaoh would often carry a mace or a ceremonial axe in battle, not just as a weapon but as a symbol of his divine authority and his role as the master of order in a chaotic world. You see the pharaoh's statues, his hand on a mace, and you know that it is a symbol of both his power and his duty. Historians still argue whether the Egyptian army was a force for expansion or a force for defense. You see how it is both. The army is used to conquer new territories and to bring back wealth and slaves to the kingdom. But it is also used to protect the borders of the kingdom from foreign invaders and to put down rebellions. It is a necessary tool for maintaining the order and the stability of the kingdom, a constant, quiet presence that keeps the peace. The life of a soldier is a hard one, but it is also a life of opportunity. A common man could rise through the ranks to become a high-ranking officer, and a soldier could return from a war with enough wealth to start a new life. The army is a kind of social equalizer, a place where a man is judged not by his birth but by his courage and his skill. You see the soldiers in the palace, and you notice their quiet confidence, a kind of strength that comes from having faced death and survived. As you sit in the quiet of the harem, you hear the distant sound of a marching drum. It's a rhythmic beat that speaks of discipline and power, a sound that says the kingdom is safe. You are a concubine, a prisoner of a kind, but you know that your gilded cage is protected by the strength of the pharaoh's army. It's a strange thought, that your life of luxury is built on the backs of men who are willing to die for their king. And you know that you are not just a part of a palace, you are a part of an empire. And it is a very powerful and very dangerous place. Your life in the palace, for all its opulence, is still governed by a clear and often brutal sense of justice. While the pharaoh is a god on earth, he is also the ultimate judge, and his word is law. You learn about the Egyptian legal system not just through stories, but through the quiet, efficient actions of the scribes and the vizier, a constant reminder that even a god-king must rule with a sense of order and fairness. A mainstream historical fact is that the Egyptian legal system was based on the concept of Ma'at, the goddess of truth, justice, and cosmic order. The pharaoh was sworn to uphold Ma'at, and his primary duty was to ensure that the law was applied fairly to all. The vizier, the pharaoh's chief minister, was the head of the legal system, a kind of Supreme Court judge who heard cases and issued judgments. You see him at work, a man with a stern, impassive face, listening to the arguments of the accused and the accuser. You also learn that a trial in ancient Egypt was a public event. People would bring their disputes to a local council, or kenbet, which was made up of elders and local officials. If the dispute couldn't be resolved, it would be brought to the vizier. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that in some cases, a decision would be made by an oracle, with a statue of a god being carried on the shoulders of the priests, who would then move toward the person who was telling the truth. It's a very dramatic and theatrical way of getting to the truth, a kind of divine lie detector test. Historians still argue whether the Egyptian legal system was truly just. While the concept of mahat was noble, the reality was often different. A wealthy person had a better chance of winning a case than a poor person, and a man had more rights than a woman. However, a woman could sue her husband, own property, and represent herself in court, which was a level of legal independence that was almost unheard of in the ancient world. You see how the system, while flawed, was a constant attempt to bring order to a chaotic world. The punishments for crimes were often severe. A thief might have his hand cut off, a murderer might be sentenced to death, and a person who committed perjury might have their nose and ears cut off. The punishment was not just about retribution, it was about restoring the cosmic balance that the crime had disrupted. It was a very public display, a kind of living lesson that everyone could see. As you sit in the palace, you think about the quiet, efficient way that justice is dispensed. You are a part of a system that is built on the idea of order and fairness, and you know that your life, for all its luxury, is still subject to the law. It's a comforting thought, a reminder that even in this chaotic world, there is a sense of right and wrong, a sense of justice that is bigger than any one person, and you know that the pharaoh, for all his power, is still a servant of Mahat. In the quiet hours of your day, you often hear the sounds of the palace's workshops, a rhythmic chorus of hammers, chisels, and the hiss of a fire. This is the sound of ancient Egyptian craftsmanship, a testament to the skill and artistry of the people who make the kingdom's riches possible. You are a part of this world now, not as a maker, but as a living example of what they create. A mainstream historical fact is that the ancient Egyptians were masters of pottery and metalwork. They used the Nile's clay to create a variety of pottery, from simple cooking pots to ornate vases and ceremonial vessels. They had a sophisticated understanding of glazes and firing techniques, and their pottery was known for its durability and its beauty. You see the potters at work, their hands covered in clay, their faces smudged with soot. Their movements a kind of dance as they shape the formless clay into a work of art. The metal workers were even more skilled. They used bronze to create a variety of tools and weapons, from chisels and hammers to swords and shields. They also used gold, silver, and copper to create a variety of jewelry and religious objects. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptians would often use a technique called lost wax casting to create intricate metal objects. A model of the object would be made in wax, then covered in clay. The clay would then be heated, and the wax would melt and be poured out, leaving a perfect mold for the metal. It's a very complex and time-consuming process, but it allows for a level of detail that is simply astonishing. Historians still argue whether the Egyptian artists and artisans were seen as a separate class from the rest of the population. You see how they are treated with a kind of respect that is reserved for those who are highly skilled. They are not just labourers, they are creators, and their work is a vital part of the kingdom's identity. They are a part of the spiritual and economic life of the kingdom, and their skill is a form of power. The palace workshops are a constant source of wonder. You see the jewellers at work, their hands moving with a surgeon's precision as they set tiny pieces of lapis lazuli and carnelian into a gold necklace. You see the sculptors at work, their chisels singing as they carve a statue of a god from a block of granite. It's a quiet, focused world, a world where the only thing that matters is the creation of beauty. As you walk through the palace, you are surrounded by the objects that these people have created. You wear their jewelry, you eat from their pots, and you sit on their chairs. You are a living testament to their skill. And you know that their work is a kind of immortality. A pot that was made thousands of years ago still exists, a testament to the person who made it. It's a humbling thought, a reminder that your own life, while luxurious, is fleeting, but the work of a skilled artisan is eternal. Your life in the palace, for all its grand spectacle, is a world built on a foundation of paper, or rather, papyrus. The entire kingdom is run by a vast and complex bureaucracy, a system of scribes and officials who record every detail of the pharaoh's reign. You are a part of this system now, not as a scribe, but as a person whose life is meticulously recorded, from your arrival to your duties and even the food you eat. It's a humbling and slightly unsettling thought. A mainstream historical fact is that the scribes held a powerful and privileged position in ancient Egyptian society. They were the keepers of knowledge, the writers of history, and the administrators of the state. They were responsible for everything from collecting taxes to recording court judgments and writing religious texts. Their power came not from physical strength or military might, but from their mastery of the written word. You see them everywhere in the palace, their reed pens in hand. Their faces a mask of quiet concentration as they meticulously record every detail of the day. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that scribes would often carry a small palette with them, which had two hollows for black and red ink and a place to hold their reed pens. The black ink was used for the main text, while the red ink was used for headings, important words, and to mark errors. This is a very organized and very practical way of keeping records. You watch them work, and you realize that the kingdom is not just run by a king, it is run by a group of quiet, focused people who are constantly writing and recording. Historians still argue whether the Egyptian bureaucracy was a force for order and stability or a tool of oppression. You see how it is both. The scribes are responsible for ensuring that the taxes are collected fairly and that the law is applied equally to all. But you also know that they are the ones who record the names of the people who are in trouble, the ones who write the decrees that send men to war or to prison. They are a kind of silent, invisible power that can make or break a person. It's a world of whispers and rumours, but it is also a world of hard, written facts. And you know that the written word is a power that can't be taken back. The bureaucracy extends to every part of the kingdom, from the granaries to the temples to the army. Every grain of wheat is counted, every soldier is recorded, and every offering to the gods is written down. It is a system that is designed to be as perfect as possible, a way of bringing order to a chaotic world. You are a part of this system, a small but valuable piece of data that is recorded and stored. As you sit in the quiet of the harem, you think of the scribes at work, and you feel a strange sense of empathy for them. They are not as free as the farmers, and they are not as powerful as the pharaohs, but they are the ones who are writing the story of the kingdom, and you know that you are not just a person, you are a character in a story. A character who is being written into a history that will be read for thousands of years. It's a strange and beautiful thought, a reminder that your life has a purpose beyond the walls of this palace, a purpose that is written in ink on papyrus. The world around you is full of gods and goddesses, a vast and complex pantheon of deities who govern every aspect of life. Your existence in the palace is a constant ritual of worship, an ongoing conversation with the divine. You are not just a person, you are a living prayer, and your life is a constant offering to the gods. A mainstream historical fact is that the ancient Egyptians had a polytheistic religion with a pantheon of hundreds of gods and goddesses. The most important of these were the sun god Ra, the god of the afterlife Osiris, and the goddess of motherhood and magic Isis. These deities were not just distant, abstract concepts, they were a part of the daily life of the people. They were in the sun that rose in the morning, the river that brought life to the land, and the stars that shone in the night sky. You see their images everywhere, on the walls of the palace, on the jewelry you wear, and on the small amulets you carry. The worship of the gods was not a weekly event, it was a constant, daily practice. You and the other concubines are responsible for performing rituals and making offerings to the gods. You sing hymns in the morning to welcome the sun, and you light incense in the evening to honor the gods of the night. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptians believed that the gods could take on the form of animals, and they would often keep sacred animals in the temples, like the bull of the god Apis or the cat of the goddess Bastet. These animals were treated with reverence, and they were seen as a living link to the divine. Historians still argue whether the Egyptian religion was a set of rigid, dogmatic beliefs, or if it was a more personal, spiritual practice. You see how it is both. The rituals and the prayers are a set of ancient rules that must be followed precisely, but you also see the people, from the lowliest servant to the highest priest, talking to the gods as if they were a part of their family, asking for their help, and thanking them for their blessings. It's a very intimate and personal kind of religion, a relationship that is based on love and trust, not just on fear and obedience. The pharaoh's role in this is crucial. He is the high priest of all the gods, the one who is responsible for maintaining the cosmic order. He is the living link between the heavens and the earth, and his primary duty is to ensure that the gods are happy and that the kingdom is safe. You see him performing rituals, his hands raised in prayer, his voice a low, rhythmic chant. It's a very powerful and a very beautiful sight. A man who is a god, and a god who is a man. As you sit in the quiet of the harem, you think of the gods that surround you. They are a constant, invisible presence, a source of comfort and a source of fear. You know that your life, for all its luxury, is a small part of a much larger and much more serious spiritual journey. And you know that your purpose is not just to be a concubine, it is to be a living prayer, a person who is constantly offering herself to the divine. It's a humbling and a beautiful thought, a reminder that you are not just a person, you are a soul, a spirit, a part of the great cosmic dance. Your life in the palace, while a part of a great and powerful kingdom, is not immune to the outside world. The borders of Egypt are not a wall, they are a porous membrane, and foreign invasions and cultural exchange are a constant, and often violent, presence. You see the evidence of this everywhere, from the new weapons in the army to the new gods in the pantheon. It's a world in flux, and you are a part of that change. A mainstream historical fact is that the New Kingdom was a period of great international exchange. Egypt had a powerful empire, and it was in constant contact with its neighbours, from the Hittites to the Assyrians and the Nubians. This contact was not always peaceful. You hear stories of the battles and the sieges, of the pharaohs who led their armies to victory and who brought back a wealth of plunder and a host of new slaves. It's a very real danger, a constant, simmering threat that hangs in the air like a cloud. But the exchange wasn't just about war, it was also about culture. You see the foreign artisans who have come to Egypt to work on the temples and the tombs. You see the foreign gods who are being worshipped in the temples, like the goddess Astarte from the Levant, who was a popular deity in Egypt. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptians would often adopt foreign gods and integrate them into their own pantheon, a kind of religious syncretism that allowed them to absorb and assimilate new ideas. It's a very pragmatic and a very open-minded way of dealing with the outside world, a way of making the foreign familiar. Historians still argue whether the foreign influences were a good thing for Egypt, or if they were a sign of a slow decline. You see how it is both. The new ideas and the new goods are a source of wealth and power, but they are also a source of tension and conflict. The new gods compete with the old ones, and the new ways of doing things challenge the ancient traditions. It's a very dynamic and a very dangerous time to be alive, a time of great change and great uncertainty. The pharaoh's role in this is crucial. He is the one who is responsible for navigating this complex world of international relations. He is a warrior who must protect the borders of the kingdom, but he is also a diplomat who must negotiate with his neighbours. He is a god on earth, but he is also a human being who must deal with the messy, human world of politics and war. As you sit in the quiet of the harem, you think of the world outside the palace, a world of war and of peace, a world of new ideas and old traditions. You are a concubine, a prisoner of a kind, but you are also a part of a great and powerful empire, an empire that is constantly changing and constantly adapting, and you know that your life, for all its luxury, is a small part of a much larger and much more serious global story. Your life in the palace, for all its grand spectacle, is a world that is rarely seen by the common person, but there are moments when the palace and the city become one, when the pharaoh's power is put on full public display. One of these moments is a royal procession, a grand, colourful, and spiritual event that you get to witness from the palace walls. A mainstream historical fact is that a royal procession was not just a parade, it was a religious and political statement. The pharaoh, as the living embodiment of the god Horus, would be carried on a litter, a kind of portable throne, by his most trusted officials. The procession would move through the streets of Thebes, from the palace to the temple, a journey that was a reenactment of the sun god Ra's journey across the heavens. The people would line the streets, cheering and offering their prayers to the pharaoh and the gods. The procession is a sensory explosion, a riot of color and sound. The air is thick with the scent of incense, and the sound of drums, flutes, and trumpets fills the air. The officials are dressed in their finest linen and their most expensive jewelry. The soldiers are in their gleaming armor, their weapons a silent testament to the pharaoh's might. The priests are in their ceremonial robes, their heads shaved, their hands raised in prayer. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the pharaoh's litter was often decorated with gold and semi-precious stones, and it was so heavy that it took dozens of men to carry it. It's a very physical way of showing the pharaoh's power and his connection to the divine. Historians still argue whether the people's reverence for the pharaoh was genuine or if it was an act of forced piety. You see a bit of both. The people are genuinely in awe of the pharaoh. He is a god on earth, a person who is responsible for the order and the stability of their world. But you also see the fear in their eyes, a silent, unblinking terror that comes from living in a world where a god-king can do whatever he pleases. It's a very powerful and a very uncomfortable mix of emotions. The procession is a way of bringing the pharaoh to the people, a way of reminding them that he is not just a distant god, but a living, breathing person who is a part of their world. It's a very human moment, a moment where the divine and the mundane meet. You are a concubine, a prisoner of a kind, but you are a part of this moment, a witness to a living piece of history. As you stand on the palace walls, watching the procession, you feel a strange sense of belonging. You are not a part of the crowd, but you are a part of the spectacle. You are a small, insignificant piece of a grand, ongoing story, and you know that your life, for all its luxury, is a small part of a much larger and much more serious, divine plan. The procession is a beautiful and a terrifying sight, a reminder that the world is both a paradise and a prison. The grandeur of the new kingdom, which you have come to know so well, is not a permanent state. You hear whispers of a change in the air, a slow, almost imperceptible decline that is affecting every part of the kingdom. The pharaoh is a god on earth, but his power is not eternal, and you are a witness to the slow, quiet erosion of a great empire. A mainstream historical fact is that the new kingdom eventually gave way to a period of decline known as the Third Intermediate Period. The reasons for this decline are complex and multifaceted, a combination of internal and external factors. You hear of the economic problems, the rising cost of grain, and the depletion of the royal treasury from a series of costly wars and an excessive focus on building temples and tombs. The people are hungry, and their unrest is a constant, low-level thrum that you feel even within the palace walls. The political system is also in decline. The pharaoh's power, once absolute, is being challenged by the high priests of Amun-Ra, who have amassed a great deal of wealth and power. They are a kind of shadow government, a parallel power structure that can defy the pharaoh's authority. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the high priests of Amun in Thebes were so powerful that they even began to write their names in cartouches, a symbol that was once reserved exclusively for the pharaoh. This is a very clear and a very public signal that their power is on the rise. Historians still argue whether the decline of the new kingdom was a natural cycle of history or if it was the result of a series of bad decisions made by the pharaohs and their officials. You see how it is both. The kingdom has become too large, too unwieldy, and too expensive to maintain. The wars are no longer a source of wealth but a source of debt. The priests are no longer allies but rivals. The people are no longer loyal but restless. It's a very human story. A story of a great empire that has lost its way. The decline is not a sudden, dramatic fall. It is a slow, quiet erosion. You see it in the way that the palace is no longer as well maintained as it once was. You see it in the way that the foreign emissaries are no longer as respectful as they once were. You see it in the way that the people are no longer as quiet as they once were. It's a very subtle change, a change that you can only see if you are a part of the world that is changing. As you sit in the quiet of the harem, you think of the grand kingdom that you have come to know. It is a beautiful and a powerful place, but it is also a fragile one. You are a concubine, a prisoner of a kind, but you are a witness to the end of an era, and you know that your life, for all its luxury, is a small part of a much larger and much more serious historical drama. The end of the New Kingdom is not just a historical fact, it is a living reality, a reality that you can feel in your bones. Your life in the palace, for all its opulence, is a temporary state. The end of a life, while a source of sadness for many, is a profound and important step in ancient Egyptian society. You learn that your death will not be an end, but a transformation, a journey to the afterlife. And you are constantly preparing for that journey, a silent, ongoing ritual that is as much a part of your life as eating and sleeping. A mainstream historical fact is that ancient Egyptians began preparing for their death as soon as they could afford to. They would buy a tomb, a sarcophagus, and a variety of funerary goods, from food and drink to furniture and jewellery, all of which were believed to be needed in the afterlife. The more wealth a person had in this life, the more luxurious their afterlife would be. You see the pharaoh's tomb being prepared, a massive, ongoing project that will take a lifetime to complete. It's a testament to the belief that the afterlife is a place of continuation, a place where a person's status and wealth are transferred. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptians would often bury a copy of the Book of the Dead with their mummified body. This book was a collection of spells and incantations that were designed to help the deceased navigate the dangers of the underworld and to pass the final judgment. It's a kind of ancient travel guide, a spiritual compass that would ensure a safe journey to the field of reeds. You hear the scribes and the priests reciting these spells. Their voices a low, rhythmic chant that is both comforting and terrifying. Historians still argue whether the Egyptian belief in the afterlife was a form of spiritual escapism or a powerful tool for social control. You see how it is both. The promise of a perfect afterlife is a powerful incentive for a person to live a moral and just life, to follow the rules and to obey the pharaoh, but it is also a source of great comfort, a belief that death is not a finality but a transformation, a journey to a better world. The preparation for death is a very public and a very personal process. You see the artisans and the scribes at work, their hands crafting the objects that will be buried with you. You see the priests at work, their voices a low, rhythmic chant as they prepare the spells that will guide you to the next world. It's a very strange and a very beautiful process. A dance between the living and the dead. As you sit in the quiet of the harem, you think of your own death. It is not a source of fear for you, but a source of purpose. Your life is a preparation for the next one, and every action you take is a small step on that journey. You are a concubine, a prisoner of a kind, but you are a soul, a spirit, a person who is on a journey to a place of eternal peace, and you know that your life, for all its luxury, is a small part of a much larger and much more serious spiritual journey. While you spend your days in the palace's inner courtyards and gardens, you've always been aware of the vast, intricate structure you inhabit. The palace isn't just a building, it's a small city, a physical manifestation of the pharaoh's power and the kingdom's bureaucracy. Its architecture and layout are a deliberate and symbolic statement, a way of organizing the living in a reflection of the cosmic order. A mainstream historical fact is that Egyptian palaces, unlike the more permanent tombs and temples, were often built of mud brick and were designed to be grand, but temporary. They were meant to be living spaces, not monuments for eternity. The layout was a series of courtyards, halls, and private chambers, a labyrinthine complex that was designed to protect the pharaoh from his enemies and to keep the business of the kingdom running smoothly. You've learned the layout of the place, the hidden passages, the secret gardens, and the private quarters where the pharaoh and his family live. The palace is not a single building, but a collection of interconnected structures. There are the living quarters for the pharaoh and his family, the temples where he performs his rituals, the workshops where the artisans create the kingdom's riches, and the granaries where the food is stored. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the palace often had its own small zoo, where the pharaoh would keep exotic animals from foreign lands, a testament to his power and his control over the natural world. You've caught glimpses of gazelles and even a caged lion, a strange, beautiful, and dangerous part of the palace's menagerie. Historians still argue whether the palace was designed to be a comfortable place to live or a place of constant surveillance and control. You see how it is both. The private quarters are luxurious, with their perfumed air and their soft beds, but they are also a kind of prison. The public spaces are beautiful and grand, but they are also a constant reminder of the pharaoh's power and your own subservience. It's a world where you are never truly alone, and where every action, every word, every gesture is watched and recorded. The architecture of the palace is a testament to the Egyptian belief in order and balance. The courtyards are often designed to be a reflection of the cosmic garden, a place where the pharaoh can walk with the gods. The halls are designed to be a reflection of the journey of the soul, a place where the pharaoh can walk from the mundane world to the divine one. It's a very spiritual and a very deliberate kind of architecture, a way of turning a building into a living prayer. As you walk through the palace, you think of the people who built it. They were not just labourers, they were creators, artists, and engineers. And they used their skills to create a building that is both a home and a sacred space. You are a small, insignificant part of this world, but you are a part of it nonetheless. And you know that your life, for all its luxury, is a small part of a much larger and much more serious architectural and spiritual masterpiece. Your life in the palace, for all its luxury, is constantly threatened by the silent, invisible dangers of the ancient world. But you've also been a first-hand witness to the remarkable knowledge of the palace doctors and their use of natural remedies, a system of medicine that is both an art and a science, a mix of spiritual beliefs and practical knowledge. It's a testament to the Egyptian belief that the world is full of healing power, if you only know where to look. A mainstream historical fact is that Egyptian medicine was remarkably advanced for its time. The Ebers Papyrus, an ancient medical text, contains over 700 magical formulas and remedies, from treatments for snake bites to cures for common ailments. The remedies were often made from a variety of natural ingredients, including plants, animal products, and minerals. You hear of doctors using garlic and onions as a natural antibiotic, and of using honey as a sterile dressing for wounds, a practice that we know today is quite effective. It's a very hands-on kind of medicine, a kind of knowledge that is passed down from generation to generation, from master to apprentice. You also learn about the different specialties of the doctors. A person might be a dentist, a surgeon, or an eye doctor. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptians believed that a person's health was tied to the flow of air and blood through the body, and that a sickness was caused by a blockage in these channels. So, a doctor might use a variety of techniques, from massages to herbal remedies, to clear these blockages and to restore the body's balance. It's a very holistic approach, a kind of ancient Chinese medicine that sees the body as a whole, not just as a collection of parts. Historians still argue whether the Egyptian doctors understood the scientific reasons for what they were doing, or if they were simply following a set of ancient rituals. You see how it is both. The doctors are very good at setting a bone or stitching a wound, but they are just as likely to offer a prayer to the goddess Sekhmet, the deity of healing and plague. The belief is that if the body is a mirror of the cosmos, then a sick body is a sign that something is out of balance, either on a personal or a cosmic level. The palace doctors are a constant presence, a team of quiet, focused people who are always on call. You see them treating everyone, from the lowliest servant to the pharaoh himself. They are not just healers, they are magicians, priests, and scientists, all wrapped up in one. They are a testament to the Egyptian belief that the universe is a place of order, and that even a sick body can be brought back into harmony. As you sit in the quiet of the harem, you think of the quiet, focused work of the palace doctors. They are a constant, gentle reminder that even in this chaotic and dangerous world, there is a sense of order and a sense of healing, and you know that your life, for all its luxury, is a small part of a much larger and much more serious spiritual and medical journey. You are a human being, a person who is vulnerable to all the dangers of the ancient world, but you are also a part of a system that is designed to keep you safe and to keep you healthy. In a world full of drama, power, and high-stakes politics, you've also discovered a lighter side to the people around you, a side that is full of laughter, jokes, and a very human sense of humour. Despite all the grand and serious business of the kingdom, the ancient Egyptians were not a humorless people. They had a wit and a playfulness that you see in the daily interactions of the people, from the lowliest servant to the highest official. A mainstream historical fact is that Egyptian humour often revolved around the absurdities of daily life, the foibles of the rich and powerful, and the peculiarities of the gods. You hear stories of scribes making fun of their lazy apprentices, of farmers telling jokes about their stubborn donkeys, and of people making fun of the gods themselves. It's a very human kind of humour, a way of dealing with the hardships of life with a bit of laughter and a bit of wit. You hear stories of a man who goes to the temple to ask the gods for a favor, and he gets a response that is so absurd and so witty that he can't help but laugh. It's a way of turning a very serious and a very religious moment into a moment of pure human comedy. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptians would often draw funny and satirical cartoons on ostraca, or pottery shards, a kind of ancient comic book. These cartoons would often depict animals behaving like humans, with a cat serving a mouse a drink or a monkey playing a flute. It's a very light-hearted and a very funny way of looking at the world, a way of poking fun at the social order and the roles that people play. Historians still argue whether the Egyptian sense of humour was a sign of a free and open society, or if it was a kind of safety valve that allowed people to vent their frustrations with a society that was so rigid and so hierarchical. You see how it is both. The people are allowed to make fun of the pharaoh, as long as it is done in a private and a very subtle way. But you also know that a joke that is taken the wrong way could land you in a lot of trouble. It's a very fine line, a line that you have to navigate with a great deal of care. The palace is not a humourless place. You hear the concubines telling jokes about the older women and the younger ones. You hear the servants telling funny stories about the latest gossip from the city. It's a very human sound. A sound that says that even in this gilded cage, people are still people, with all their hopes and all their fears and all their laughter. As you sit in the quiet of the harem, you think of the funny stories you've heard, and you find yourself smiling. It's a small, but a very important moment of connection. A moment that says that even in this strange and unsettling world, you are still a part of the great human family, and you know that your life, for all its luxury, is a small part of a much larger and much more serious story. A story that is full of laughter and a story that is full of tears. In the quiet moments of your day, you often find yourself looking at the small, intricate symbols that are a constant presence in your life. The most common of these is the scarab beetle, a humble creature that holds a profound significance in ancient Egyptian life and death. You see it everywhere, from the jewelry you wear to the amulets that are placed in the tombs of the dead. It's a small creature that is a part of a very large and very serious spiritual puzzle. A mainstream historical fact is that the scarab beetle, or dung beetle, was a powerful symbol of rebirth, regeneration, and the cycle of the sun. The Egyptians observed the beetle rolling a ball of dung across the ground and believed that it was a representation of the sun god Ra rolling the sun across the sky every day. The beetle's habit of burying the dung ball and laying its eggs inside it, from which new life would emerge, was seen as a powerful metaphor for the cycle of death and rebirth. It's a very simple and a very profound observation of the natural world, a way of finding a spiritual truth in a very ordinary place. You also learn that the scarab beetle was associated with the god Khepri, a form of the sun god Ra, who was responsible for the morning sun. The name Khepri means he who is coming into being, and he was often depicted as a man with a scarab beetle for a head. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Egyptians would often carve scarabs out of stone, like lapis lazuli or carnelian, and place them on the heart of a deceased person during the mummification process. The scarab was believed to magically prevent the heart from speaking against the deceased during the final judgment, a kind of magical mute button for the soul. It's a very practical and a very spiritual way of ensuring a safe journey to the afterlife. Historians still argue whether the Egyptian belief in the scarab beetle was a genuine religious belief or a kind of symbolic shorthand for a more complex spiritual idea. You see how it is both. The people genuinely believe in the power of the scarab, but the priests and the scribes have a deeper, more philosophical understanding of its meaning. It's a very layered and a very complex belief system, a system that can be understood on many different levels. The scarab is not just a symbol of rebirth, it is also a symbol of life. You see the women in the harem wearing scarab amulets, a way of asking for good fortune and a long and healthy life. You see the children playing with small scarab carvings, a way of teaching them about the gods and the spiritual world. It's a very constant and a very gentle reminder that the world is a place of cycles, a place of death and a place of rebirth, and that you are a part of that great, ongoing rhythm. As you sit in the quiet of the harem, you look at the small scarab on your necklace, and you feel a strange sense of comfort. It is a small, insignificant thing, but it is a symbol of a very large and a very powerful idea. You are a concubine, a prisoner of a kind, but you are also a part of a world that is full of beauty and full of magic. A world where a small beetle can be a symbol of a great god, and you know that your life, for all its luxury, is a small part of a much larger and much more serious spiritual journey. Your time in the palace has been a journey, a transformation from a simple village girl to a concubine in the new kingdom. You have seen the heights of power and the depths of human frailty. You have learned the language of the gods, the rituals of the living, and the preparations for the dead. You have become a part of a world that is both beautiful and terrifying, a world that you could never have imagined. And now, you reflect on your life and your legacy within this gilded cage. A mainstream historical fact is that a concubine's legacy was almost entirely dependent on her ability to bear a son to the pharaoh, and especially one who would go on to be a king. If you were lucky enough to have a son who became a pharaoh, you would be elevated to the status of a great royal mother, and your tomb would be decorated with your name and your titles. Your life, once insignificant, would become a part of the grand, ongoing story of the kingdom. But if you did not bear a son, your legacy would be a small one. A footnote in the history of the palace, you would be remembered, if at all, as a part of the king's vast and nameless collection of women. You have learned to live with this reality, a reality where your entire value is tied to a single, unpredictable act. You have seen the women who have had sons, and you have seen the women who have not. You have seen the quiet joy of the mothers and the quiet desperation of the childless. It's a very raw and a very human drama that is played out every day in the palace. A drama that you are both a part of and an observer of. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some concubines, even those who didn't bear a son, were able to use their skills as musicians, dancers, or poets to gain a measure of influence with the pharaoh. They were able to use their talents to build a kind of personal legacy, a legacy that was based on their own worth, not just on their ability to produce an heir. You have seen these women, and you have admired their quiet strength, their ability to find a sense of purpose in a world that was designed to make them feel powerless. Historians still argue whether the life of a concubine was one of oppression or one of opportunity. You have seen how it is both. You are a prisoner of a kind, a person whose life is not her own. But you are also a person who has been given a life of luxury, an education, and a chance to be a part of a world that you could never have imagined. It's a very complex and a very contradictory reality, a reality that you have learned to navigate with a great deal of grace. As you sit in the quiet of the harem, you think of the girl you once were, a girl who lived a simple life in a simple village. That girl is gone, but a new person has taken her place, a person who is stronger, wiser, and more resilient. You are a concubine, a prisoner of a kind, but you are also a survivor, a person who has found a way to live and to thrive in a world that was designed to control you. And you know that your life, for all its luxury, is a small part of a much larger and much more serious human story. The end of your journey is not a sudden event, but a slow, quiet fading. The grand world of the palace, the loud, bustling rhythm of the kingdom, all of it begins to soften, to recede, to become a distant memory. You have lived a life of opulence and intrigue, a life that has been a constant preparation for this final, and most important, journey. And now, you feel the gentle, insistent pull of the afterlife, a soft, soothing whisper that tells you it is time to go. The air in your chamber, once thick with the scent of jasmine and myrrh, now smells of dust and dry linen. The sun, which once burned with a fierce, blinding intensity, now feels like a gentle, warming touch on your skin. The sounds of the palace, the distant murmur of voices and the clinking of pottery, are now a soft, rhythmic hum, a kind of lullaby that lulls you into a state of sleepy contentment. You feel a strange sense of detachment, as if your body is a boat that is slowly drifting away from the shore, leaving the world behind. You remember the journey you have taken, the girl you once were, the woman you have become. You remember the beauty rituals, the political intrigues, the moments of laughter and the moments of fear. All of it, all of your life, is now a memory, a story that is etched in your mind and your heart. You are not a person who will die, you are a person who will be transformed, a soul on a journey to a place of eternal peace. You are no longer a concubine, no longer a prisoner of a kind. You are a soul, a spirit, a person who is on a journey to a better world. You feel the weight of your body fading, and you feel the lightness of your spirit rising. You are a part of a great and a beautiful cosmic dance, a part of a story that is as old as the desert itself. And you know that your journey, for all its luxury and all its fear, was a small, but a very important, part of a much larger and much more serious, divine plan. Now, as the last remnants of daylight fade from your chamber, you feel the soft pull of the afterlife. The voices of the living grow more distant, and the memory of the sun-drenched courtyards and the perfumed air begins to soften at the edges. The world of the living is a beautiful memory, but the world of the dead is a place of peace, a place of eternal rest. You are a soul on a journey, and the journey is just beginning, and as the last of the light fades, you feel yourself drifting, a quiet current carrying you away. The story is ending, and the journey is just beginning. Your mind softens, your thoughts begin to blur, and you feel the familiar comfort of a deep, restful sleep. You are safe. You are at peace. Sweet dreams. End of script. Sweet dreams.